Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll see what happens. We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I am a dissident.
Don't move. Move.
I'm saying no. Why you hear Palantir, 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 Palantir? It's not going to stop.
Seriously, we need to release the F-scene list.
Turns off.
I am not a church boy.
Turns off.
They're full-on vampires.
They hate our beef. They hate our beef. They hate our beef because our beef is beautiful and theirs is weak.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome one and all to a Sunday evening edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss. Russ will be back soon. Week after next. Getting close, counting down the days till Abbott and Costello are reunited once again. So thanks everybody very much for being here. Appreciate you all. Great crowd in here to start things off tonight. 620 strong in the YouTube chat, 305 over on Rumble. Sunday night, got a great guest with us tonight. We're going to waste no time bringing him in here. You all know Lee Camp. Lee Camp can be found on YouTube and on Substack and on your favorite podcast player. And I guess part of the point of having him on is to find out exactly how we can find him again, because he had a little something happen, as happens to Lee over and over again. Calls himself the most censored comic in America. But we're going to take a chance on him, as we always do, because it always pays off. Lee Camp is with us tonight. Lee, thanks so much for being here again.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah, I saw that something happened with your show. Things seem to happen with your shows a lot.
Yeah, again and again and again. Well, this time, in a way, it was self-decided. My TV show was canceled by U.S. sanctions 4 years ago. Then a little over a year ago, I started a new, completely independent version I did myself called Unredacted Tonight. We've talked about it before. It made it about 13 months or so. But when it was actually doing well and growing and everything, it was hit by some sort of, it's tough to know whether these things are humans or algorithms or how it works, but its numbers were destroyed, and I couldn't afford to keep it going with like the inability to ever grow or have a video go viral or anything. So I ultimately, just a week ago, had to end Unredacted Tonight. I still do my live streams. I still have my podcast. I still have my Substack and everything, but it just wasn't feasible.
So, yeah, so you still are out there. You still have your main show with your streams and your podcast and everything. Unredacted Tonight was sort of a daily show type format, right? Like a kind of a variety news show. With a little bit more of a polished sort of
I'd
production.
say most of your viewers that know me from Redacted Tonight, which ran for 8 years, weekly comedy news. Some people have called it daily show with teeth. Farther left daily show. And, I wrote every word I ever said myself, which is like unheard of in the world of comedy news. And it takes a lot in that it takes a lot of writing. It takes film, some sort of crew, or at least a cameraman. It takes teleprompters. It takes images and editing and all that shit. So it's different than a live stream. And so with that amount of work and that amount of money spent on it, I just couldn't keep up my newer independent version with such crazy suppression. And, we've talked about it before, but this is not new for me. I had my TikTok banned a couple of years ago with no reason or right to appeal. I had my podcast on Spotify banned with no reason. I had my main YouTube page. I have a new one, but my main YouTube page banned around the world with no reason or right to appeal. So this seems to be common for me.
It's really brutal. It's really mysterious. I mean, I don't know when you notice the drop off. You know, there's always, when you're a YouTuber and your numbers go down, especially when you do the kind of stuff that we do, you always ask questions, and you don't want to be the guy to like blame the algorithm or blame active suppression. But I remember at the beginning of this year, like, our numbers for the last month have been a little lower because Russ isn't here and we're a package deal, and I get that. Don't worry, I'm not pissed at you guys. It's fine. You don't have to watch. You don't want to watch. Don't watch.
Think
you want to watch something else. Watch something else. Fine. I don't care. Go ahead.
think you're doing the heavy lifting, man.
I'm kidding. Of course, we love our audience. But no, I mean, we figured that was going to happen, so that's fine. But I noticed at the end of it was like a light switch. December 31st, we were here. January 1st, boom, down here. Now, we did have this like bogus copyright action against us, which I've not talked about in great detail on the show. The thing about YouTube is when it comes to copyright stuff, they are very much shoot first, ask questions later. And so you don't even want to talk too much about the copyright problems you have because, A, you don't want to let the people who fucked you know that they fucked you. And also, you don't want to let the people who are thinking about fucking you get any ideas about how to fuck you. So, like, you kind of like don't want to say too much. So it happened right as that copyright thing happened. But then after the copyright thing resolved, it was still do you watch these videos where like YouTube changed their algorithm? They changed how they counted their views. Was it like all of a sudden like that with you? Like it was somebody hit something? Because that's what it felt like for us.
Yeah, it was, because for about 3 months, maybe 3-4 months, Unredacted Tonight. I mean, I think my channel in general is suppressed, but Unredacted Tonight was growing. Like, it was showing growth. It would have an occasional video pop off and get 10 times what the others got, which is kind of standard, like, viral stuff. If you are capable of going viral, you will have a good one here or there that goes viral to some degree. That all just like ended. It was just, it was fairly sudden. And if you look at the analytics, as I've mentioned in my Substack article about it and stuff, if you look, people would love to say like, well, man, you just suck. That's the reason people don't want to see it. But if you look at the analytics, it's like you can see the number of people or the percentage that are subscribers, fans that are told about it. And that percentage, dropped by, 7-fold. You can look at various analytics that, YouTube stopped recommending this to people that weren't subscribers, but even stopped recommending it to all the subscribers. So once they do that, you're just kind of fucked.
Yeah, it's kind of a helpless situation to be in. We get people tell us that, hey, I didn't get a notification that you were live or whatever. I'm sure you've gotten that stuff. But now Unredacted Tonight was not a live stream show, right? You would pre-record that, and then would you premiere the stuff?
Premiere.
Or you okay, yeah. So you would pre-tape, but then obviously for the show that you have now, it's a live stream and clips, just kind of the similar format to ours, I guess.
Yeah. I do a live stream 3 times a week, 1 hour, and then we'll put up the clips. But even that has been, it's like the entire channel, something new has been hitting it. And I've seen this before in kind of my other platforms. Like, I'll be allowed to start growing for a bit, like something has changed, and maybe they've decided I, have served my time, and they take off the governor or whatever. But then once they see how aggressively I do start growing, like on Facebook, I was shadow banned for years since 2016. I was stuck at 330,000 followers, couldn't grow, couldn't do well. And then they took it off. I guess, either something switched in the coding or someone specifically decided like, it's been 9 years. Let's let this channel grow.
Right.
I gained 30,000 in like 3 months, and now it's just stuck again. It's like they're like, oh, we didn't know it was going to do that.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, it's, that's the thing, independent media is independent to a point, but ultimately we are, kind of feudal serfs to these tech overlords, right? Because it feels a lot like being an Uber driver in the sense that you're very dependent on platforms that really don't know you from anyone else if you're lucky. And then if they do find out who you are, that's when you have something to worry about usually.
Yeah, they don't care. They are more than willing to shut you down. And, you know, people love to say, oh, well, it's a private platform or what, like, but there's no like transparency on what we're dealing with or why. Because if there were, it'd be like, oh, well, you talked about the genocide in Gaza too much. So that's the reason. Like they don't want transparency because that would reveal what it is that we're saying that's too scary or too problematic. But, you know, like with my Facebook, like I said, I became shadow banned in 2016. But prior to that, I'd spent like 10 years. That was my main platform, building it up. And it's like if you spent 10 years building up a restaurant and it got popular and then the city built a wall on the public sidewalk blocking all the entrances. And they go, so, you know, the sidewalk belongs to them. They can block it off. And it's
Right.
like, well, are you going to pay me for the 10 years I spent trying to build this into something? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and you could still earn money for them. It's just they make it impossible for people to pay you, right? That's the way that goes. Are you on Rumble at all? Have you used Rumble?
yeah, I have a brief history with Rumble. Once the show was sanctioned into oblivion in 2022, Rumble gave me a small deal to just move my live stream there. So I was doing my live stream on Rumble.
Okay.
So I'm still there, rumble.com/LeeCamp. But I was kind of the only left winger that Rumble ever gave a deal to, as far as I could tell. And I think, and the reason they did it, because they, you know, they're Peter Thiel and they're right wing lunatics and all that shit. And I think the reason they did it was they wanted to say, look, we also have left wingers.
Well, they've been great to us. I mean, I would say try building there because they've been really, really good to us. They know what we do. They're not stupid. They know what our show is, and they've been extremely supportive. So, I mean, you're a fairly big name. I think, you know, you should, you know, try building that back up. It takes a lot of, you know, it takes some work. Like what we used to do to build our Rumble channel is we would split our streams every once in a while, where we'll have YouTube for the first couple hours, and then we'll switch to Rumble for the edgier stuff. And that brings a lot of the YouTube viewers, and you grow your followership over there pretty fast. And if you do good live numbers, they really take interest in you. They've been super supportive to us, even though, obviously, I mean, they have, I just shouldn't say the platform has an editorial bent, but because of all the censorship of conservative voices, they were populated more with conservative figures at the time that they really grew. Yeah. And so it's become this sort of de facto right-wing platform, but they have treated us amazingly well, and I think they will treat you very well too if you just, you know, the key to the Rumble. I mean,
I am there. Rumble.com/LeeCamp.
Cool.
So yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, that's awesome. And you're still on YouTube. So Unredacted Tonight is still the @ right? That's still this.
That's on YouTube at Unredacted Tonight. Yeah, that's correct. And my Substack's been growing. Real Lee Camp on Substack.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Substack is another great platform too. I find Substack to be
really good, they've been growing.
You write a lot.
They've been growing, and I write a lot, and so especially for writers, it's definitely a good platform.
Awesome. So at Unredacted Tonight is where you can still find Lee doing his thing. All right. So here, Lee, let's make us both feel better, since we're both but both of us.
Let's hear about right wingers sucking air.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is a story that I think is going to cheer us both up tonight. So, hey, Cameron Archon says, hey, friends, tough news to share. I was impacted by layoffs today at the Daily Wire. See, this is a nice pick-me-up for the both of us. So I am looking for opportunities in journalism and communications here in D.C. Any suggestions are welcomed. Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire hit with layoffs across a number of teams, largely from Nashville HQ. The Daily Wire has been hit with another round of layoffs. Ben Shapiro's right-wing media company confirmed the layoffs in a statement to the media on Friday afternoon, saying that impacted staffers span a number of teams and that the layoffs were largely concentrated at its Nashville headquarters. Today, the Daily Wire made a difficult decision to restructure the organization, which included layoffs to a number of teams, a spokesperson said. We are deeply grateful to those impacted. Their contributions were instrumental in building the Daily Wire into what it is today. The statement continued, the cuts were largely concentrated at our Nashville production office. As the company has invested in new formats, locations, and production models, our footprint there has the Northeast and Florida. Our footprint there has evolved, pardon me. Over the last year, we have added production staff in D.C., the Northeast, and Florida. This step allows us to focus our resources on an ambitious slate of new entertainment projects set to release this year. Yeah, they want to be movie makers there. that Ben Shapiro and the other guy, Jeremy Boring, they are frustrated would-be Hollywood screenwriters. So I guess they're laying people off so they can go make more movies. Additionally, we will continue to invest in our editorial team and investigative journalism, where we have already added numerous new reporters across the country and established a D.C. bureau with a seat in the White House briefing room. So, yeah, this kind of gave you an idea of how things were going with the Daily Wire. Just really hasn't been the same last couple years when it wasn't, trans bathrooms stealing the front page. Ever since the genocide started, people started realizing, you know what, maybe this isn't exactly the political project for us. Here's Michael Knowles, one of the big Daily Wire personalities, insisting that no, a variety of opinions on Israel are allowed here.
Now, at this point, believe that the Daily Wire, for example, is an Israel-first organization, which is why people like that are trying to
Why would you get that impression?
Because more pro-Israel.
I mean, obviously Ben Shapiro is a Jew, but why else would you get that impression?
Yeah, it's because we can't get policies that are pro-America. We still can't
we don't
get
make
our
policy
own.
at the Daily Wire. We're a media company.
Oh, I understand what
so
you're
we've
saying.
got me.
Yeah, in the literal sense,
I mean, what is
yes.
the Daily Wire? The Daily Wire is Ben. Obviously, he was the first talent that they hired, and Ben's a Jew, and people have big problems with Ben for being a Jew. I have problems with Ben for other reasons, but, people have big problems with Ben because he wears the yarmulke. But then what else is the Daily Wire? The Daily Wire is Matt Walsh. He's a Catholic. The Daily Wire is Michael Knowles. I'm a Catholic. I've been there since day 2. The Daily Wire is Andrew Klavan. He's an ethnic Jew. People might have problems with that.
Candace Owens, Jeremy Boring.
So Jeremy Boring's a Protestant. Look, I got plenty of problems with the Protestants, okay? People sometimes say, Michael, how can you work for the Daily Wire? How can you work for those dastardly Jews? I say, it's much worse than that. I work for the Protestants, man. It's so much worse.
Yeah, very good, very good. Well, here is Michael Knowles. Recently, it was Arab American Heritage Month, and Sesame Street made the mistake of paying some kind of tribute to that, which Michael Knowles had an issue with.
Turning your kids into jihadis. Elmo is now going on Sesame Street to teach your kids Arabic.
Salam alaikum, everyone. I'm Rami Youssef.
Oh, and Elmo's Elmo. Mr. Rami, what does salam alaikum mean?
Well, salam means peace, and it's a way to say hello in Arabic.
Oh, cool. Oh, salam alaikum, everybody.
Elmo and I are here to wish all of you a happy Arab American Heritage Month.
Yeah, happy Arab American Heritage Month.
I'm so proud of my Arab heritage, and I'm so happy to share this month with my fellow Arabs and Elmo. So, thanks, Habibi.
Oh, wait a minute. What's Habibi?
Oh, it's an Arabic word for a special friend.
Really? Well, happy Arab American Heritage Month, Habibi. We love you.
La la la. This is the song. La 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 la. Oh la 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 la. Elmo song. This is the song. La 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 la. Oh la 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 la.
But the real takeaway from the Sesame Street video is not just that Elmo's teaching your kids Arabic, which I don't know about you. I'm not. I would like my kids to learn Latin, Greek, Hebrew. Biblical Hebrew would be good. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe Italian if they have time.
Can't forget that one.
Hebrew, Arabic rather. Very, very low on the list. Very, very low on the list. But notice what the guy is saying. He says, it's Arab American Heritage Month. New liturgical month just dropped. Write it down. Put it on your calendar. I didn't know about that one. But he says, and I'm so proud to be Arab. It's so great to be Arab. And if you look at that guy, if you just looked at him, he just introduced himself. He says, hi, I'm Johnny Smith, or even whatever his name is, Remy or Rami or whatever. You would not know that he was Arab. He looks like a white guy. And actually, for all of American history until about 10 or 15 years ago, Arabs, people from the Levant, were just classified as white. They might look a little dusky. I look a little dusky. But they were just classified as white. And then there was a big push 10 or 15 years ago. Linda Sarsour was behind this, to reclassify them as MENA, Middle East and North African, to create a new victim identity group.
A new victim identity group. Wow. A new victim identity group. I think the Daily Wire exists to create a new victim identity group. Lee, you go ahead.
It's just such a strikingly racist video.
It's just unbelievable.
It's like, God forbid that Elmo say something nice about Arabs.
Yeah, God forbid Elmo learn the word Habibi or Salam Alaikum. Yeah, exactly. No, it's just unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. And the idea of having like a problem with this, and then he's like, and they're identifying as Arab. They don't identify as white people. And it's like, I'm Jewish, and a lot of the Jews I know look very white, and will talk about how they're Jewish. Like, that is not
exactly. Exactly. Like, you're talking about all these white people all of a sudden created a new race for themselves so that they could be victims. Motherfucker, you're from Europe. You're European. I'm an Ashkenazi Jew. Look at me. I'm white. People say how white I am because I don't get sun enough, and also the lighting in here is fucked up because it's a new room. But anyway, point is, I'm a pretty pasty guy. I mean, or I'm a pretty white-looking guy. Ben Shapiro's a pretty white-looking guy. Yet he constantly calls himself Jewish. Why? To create a new victim group. It's amazing. It's amazing. He doesn't have the self-awareness to say that, or the awareness of his boss to say that. Just insane.
I mean, these people are so just strikingly revolting. It really is kind of crazy. The reason their numbers are going down, the reason Daily Wire is laying off staff, I know there's a debate about whether it's 50% or not. I have heard that they're losing thousands of subscribers like per day. But it's because even right-wingers, they may not care as much about the genocide in Gaza or the utterly insane war in Iran or the blowing up of 160 schoolgirls in, one missile strike in Iran. They may not care as much, but they don't seem to be largely in favor of it. Like, the polling shows that even MAGA people don't love the genocide in Gaza, don't love the war with Iran. So what Daily Wire is like, just to tell you every day, no, it's great. It's like, the genocide is great. Not only is it not happening, but it's awesome. Like,
and the gaslighting that this is America first too. That's the other thing. That's the thing I think offends the people on the right the most, is that this is a selling out of America. They really love America, and they don't want to see American interests take a backseat to foreign interests when it comes to the policy program of the so-called America First president. So to what you were saying, Candace Owens says, hearing that the Daily Wire laid off over 50% of their staff today. As much as I positively despise what their execs put me and my family through, there are a lot of good people that work there with families to feed who could use a prayer. Nah, I don't think so. I think I'm good.
I don't think so.
We're all good over here. Thanks, though. Brent Scher says, yes, the company had layoffs today. It's always really tough. No, it was nowhere near 50% of the company. That's insane, and also insane to post without verifying.
So it's probably 48%.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, I mean, look, this is an outlet that tells you there's a 1-to-1 civilian to combatant kill ratio in Gaza. So, forgive us if we don't really trust their math or their numbers. Yeah. But here, the numbers don't lie. You can go to Social Blade and check up on your favorite, or probably more often least favorite, YouTube creators to see how much shit they're eating on any given day. So yeah, Ben Shapiro, 7.06 million subscribers. But if you look at that, lost 10,000 subscribers over the last 30 days. He's got 25 million views over the last 30 days. Now, our channel gets roughly 1.5 to 2 million views every 30 days, and we're at 130,000 subscribers. So Ben Shapiro has, 70 times as many subscribers as we do, and only 10 to 12 times the amount of views. That's how you know he's really eating it a lot. Ben Shapiro's YouTube channel has bled over 100,000 subscribers since late 2025. This comes as his company, the Daily Wire, has been forced to lay off large numbers of employees and scale back its future plans due to declining viewership. Yeah, so that is the subscriber net gain and loss. Notice September 15th, 2025, that was after the Charlie Kirk shooting when everybody was going online. So he gained a bunch then. But since then, it's been bleeding subscribers. Before then, bleeding subscribers. The view count, notice much lower mountains than back about a year ago. Monthly gain subscribers, Ben Shapiro, way down. Monthly gain views for Ben Shapiro's show, way down. For the Daily Wire, again, similar thing. Just bleeding subscribers, less than 10,000 per month. But, who thinks all of this is great? Who thinks that, Trump was really smart to banish the true America firsters, so to speak, from the coalition, the woke Reich, as they call them, Mark Levin and Ted Cruz. So here they are saying, no, this is great that half the coalition is gone and Trump has a 34% favorability rating.
Anti-Semitism rise on the right, and it's led by a handful of self-appointed influencers who are spreading Jew hatred, who are attacking Israel every day, who are attacking President Trump every day, who are undermining America. And anti-Semitism is a gateway drug to anti-capitalism and anti-Americanism. Mondami is a great example of that. Comrade Mondami is the Green-Red Alliance. Marxists and Islamists both come together because they hate the same people. And listen, we need to stand up and defend America. We need to defend our liberties and defend free enterprise against the crazies that are undermining our nation.
Defend our liberties. We need to defend our liberties against the crazies. Who can't stop talking about who needs to be censored next on behalf of Israel? Oh yeah, no. The pro-Israel agenda. That's the pro-civil liberties agenda.
And the president deserves a great deal of credit for effectively excommunicating the woke Reich, who have tried to pretend that they're MAGA. They have nothing.
Yeah, no. The key to politics is get less support. That's the key. Excommunicate your base.
I feel like Mark Levin's going to start to get scoliosis from the weight of that flag pin. That's the largest flag pin I've ever seen. It's just drawing down one side of his body.
That is a huge flag pin. You're right. Maybe he felt the need to compensate for the fact that he supports Israel before America. Wear a huge American flag pin in case people get the wrong idea.
In common with MAGA. MAGA is filled with patriots who believe in this country and support this country and support capitalism. And they certainly don't root for Putin and Qatar and Iran. And you've done a hell of a great job on this, Ted. And I want to thank you, and God bless you, my friend.
By the way, Ted Cruz was Mark Levin's candidate of choice in 2016 to the point where he vowed not to support Donald Trump in the general election, but he's who has the president's ear now. So here's Tucker Carlson's numbers, looking pretty healthy. Look like the woke Reich is doing okay. Woke Reich über alles, as they say, with the B+ rating and an increase in subscribership and viewership. Quite the difference there. Ultimately, I think what the Daily Wire is dealing with is a contradiction in terms. You can't describe yourself as an America First movement and clearly prioritize the objectives of Israel before the United States. The other problem that I think they're having is that there is no point in pro-Israel alternative media. Like, there's no point in that. That's almost a contradiction in terms. Like, the mainstream media is in the tank for Israel. So why would people go to alternative media to get the same editorial bent that they could get watching TV?
Yeah, I mean, I've always found that funny. Is like, why are you turning to this? Like, if you have Fox News, don't you have News Nation? Like, you need to go to Ben Shapiro. It's just lunacy.
You could see handsome men praise Israel. You don't need to watch Ben Shapiro. Yeah.
I will say that it is nice to see, like, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro, like, all the kind of crazies hating each other. It's really just nice to see them shredding each other. It's kind of like seeing zombies turn on each other. You're kind of like, that's good for everyone. They're all psychopathic lunatics, and they really hate each other.
Well, when it comes to Candace Owens and like Tucker Carlson, like, obviously for the most part, their politics are not mine. But I said that in the aftermath of the Trump victory, now that the right has power, I always thought it's going to be the anti-Israel right that's going to have more effect on the discourse than the anti-Israel left, because the anti-Israel right is the faction that can drive a wedge through the ruling class of the day. True. Like, they're the ones who can actually make a fracture in the power structure. Whereas the anti-Israel left, I mean, I happen to be on the anti-Israel left, but like we don't have any power now.
So you
it
send
matters
like
less.
donations and little heart stickers to Tucker Carlson each week.
No, I mean, Tucker, I think, is definitely a mixed bag. We've had our criticisms of Tucker for sure, no doubt about it. But I also think like it's important that you have figures on the right saying what he's saying, because that is what has created this fracture in this very, very dangerous movement, really. I mean, they're at 30-something% because the Tuckers and the Candaces jumped ship, and I'm grateful that they did.
No, I agree with that, and I will. Most recently, I remember tearing apart the interview between Tucker Carlson and Mike Huckabee, but I had rather little criticism of Tucker, a little bit, but mainly it was just look how insane Mike Huckabee is, saying Israel is allowed to take all of Greater Israel, which is like 5 countries, and et cetera. So I will show those clips and be like, yeah, Tucker's right on this. But, it's a mixed bag. You also got to know he doesn't believe in evolution. And Candace Owens says
Does
that
he not believe in evolution?
the moon landing is fake and gay. So you need to know these things.
I mean, I think the moon landing is gay. I don't know about fake, but it is gay. Space travel is gay. I don't know if it's fake, but it's definitely gay.
Gay orgy when they landed up there.
Yeah, so she's half right about that, I'll give her half. All right, let's Vientikis Prime says, I wonder if Lee knows that everything's a scam, everything's a lie, everything's hypocrisy, and so you shouldn't comply. Thanks, Vientikis.
I like it.
Appreciate that. So Keaton, now that I lost out on a bet, how long it take for you to get to the form when you check in the form? Oh, did you make a bet as to when I'll check the form? I'll tell you what, I'll make sure I check I'll make sure I check the form this week so you don't lose any more money. In fact, I'll check it after the show. You should call in, Vientikis. Will there be any jet fuel for Russ to fly home? Yeah, good question. Good question. Eric Rousseau, show idea, unredacted OnlyFans. Yeah.
Does that mean I have to be naked, or how's that work?
You could like show naked people. You know how they have like gamers? I always thought that would be an innovative podcasting strategy. Like some people will talk politics while gaming. What if you just like talk politics with like OnlyFans stuff and just stream it only to OnlyFans?
Or exactly. What if I just had like a picture-in-picture of porn while I was
you're just talking? Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's not going to help you in the YouTube algorithm, but you could do exclusive content, for certain platforms. Lee Camp is a rebel. His stunt on Fox News is legendary.
I love that still is making the circles. It's believe it or not, we are 2 years away from that being 20 years ago. 2008 went on Fox News and called them a parade of propaganda and a festival of ignorance, and still gets passed around.
Wow, when you think about it, 20. Wow, yeah, that was about 18 years ago. Crazy, really crazy. How the time goes. Vientikis says apparently Chinese people are having an issue where their cookware steel is dangerously low grade. I hope Russ comes back healthy. I decided to test my cookware just in case. How do you test cookware? How do you do that? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Vientikis says another funny news just in: GameStop offers to buy eBay for $56 billion. That's an interesting story. Ben Shapiro's eyebrows should have to register as foreign agents.
GameStop are they still alive?
I guess they're still going.
Okay.
I guess they're still going. I don't game anymore. Do people still buy like physical games, or do you download everything to like, your online Xbox?
Good question.
Or
Maybe it's like vinyls. They just buy them and staple them on their walls.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right. We got 1870 strong in the YouTube chat. Let's smash that like button, everybody, please. 609 over on Rumble. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We're here with Lee Camp. Russell will be back week after next, coming down the home stretch of his China trip. Well, let's get into some more news of the day. So remember when the Iran war first started a couple of months ago, and people were suspicious that perhaps the United States was taking on more damage than our government was letting us know about in terms of casualty counts, in terms of infrastructural damage to the various bases. Well, now you have the mainstream media catching up to the speculation. A couple months later, new CNN investigation says at least 16 American military sites have been damaged in Iranian strikes, making up the majority of U.S. positions in the Middle East.
There's a dilemma. In some ways, Iran's show of force makes the U.S.'s presence in the region even more necessary to Gulf security. But there's a new reality here, which is that U.S. military installations, previously seen as formidable fortresses, have turned into sitting targets. As a Saudi source told me, the war has shown Saudi Arabia, that's the U.S.'s longest-standing Arab ally, that the alliance with the U.S. cannot be exclusive, and it is not, in their words, impregnable. To get a sense of just how vulnerable U.S. facilities have become, have a look at this. It's the war room at Qatar's El Udeid Air Base, the theater command and control hub for U.S. air power across 21 nations. Struck not just once, but twice, and according to a U.S. source, causing significant damage. The base had been largely evacuated at this point, and no casualties were reported. Iran's visibility over its targets has never been clearer. In 2024, according to the Financial Times, Tehran secretly acquired a Chinese satellite known as the TEE-01B, a massive upgrade from its own satellites. That means that Tehran went from looking at images of this quality to this. This is the first time America has fought an adversary with satellites that capture high-res imagery almost as detailed as its own. As the scale of the damage comes into focus, many will wonder whether America's presence, once a protective shield in the Middle East, has turned into its Achilles heel. Tamar al-Khablawi, CNN, London.
So it's kind of amazing how, I don't even know if I could say caught off guard this administration was by all of this, because in the Tucker interview with the New York Times, he talked about in conversations with Donald Trump, it seemed like he knew the deal going in and was dragged in anyway. But it's amazing to see now, 60 days after people were saying, I think the United States is getting hit a lot harder than the government is telling us, than the media is telling us, to have CNN finally come out with this now. I guess this is better than in Iraq, where it took, quite a long time for the media to admit that the whole WMD lie was just that, a lie. So this is 60 days. So I guess that's progress of a kind. But what was your thinking, Lee, at the beginning of this war? Your reaction when it started, and were you one of those who thought that, we're taking on more damage than we're being told about?
Yeah, it does feel like, oh, well, if you actually want to learn about this stuff rather than wait a month and then learn about it, you should be watching like your show and my show and people like George Galloway and stuff who were saying the U.S. is getting hit constantly. Now, it's not like I had these inside sources so I didn't know precisely, but it seemed very much like the U.S. was trying to cover up how much they were getting hit, how helpless they were. And let's remember throughout all of this that Iran spends 1% of what the U.S. does on military, literally 1% of what the U.S. spends, and yet has, in many ways brought the U.S. to its knees. I mean, the U.S. seems to have no plans for how to handle this ongoing insanity. And yeah, I didn't know like whether the numbers. Intercept like several weeks ago, maybe a month ago, covered that the number dead and injured of U.S. soldiers was far higher. Oh, you already had it up.
That's this, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, Nick Turse covered it. It's probably, I think he said it was maybe in the hundreds or something, whereas the Pentagon at the time was saying it was like 12.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we knew they were lying. Now, the extent of the lies was, and maybe continues to be unclear. But 16 U.S. military bases hit. But you have to remember that not just are they hit, they then or prior are evacuated. And is the U.S. military just going to fill them again? Just go back to the places that they now know will be targeted and can be hit? Or have all these U.S. military bases basically become compromised? and now can barely or only a little be used. Like, you don't have to hit them a lot. It's not like you have to kill everyone there for them to become kind of useless. Are we going to sit there like sitting ducks? I don't know. There's just so much about this that the U.S. is not telling the public.
Well, there was a report that said that, most of the U.S. bases had been rendered uninhabitable. I mean, this is the first time that CNN is saying most of the bases have been struck, but Richard Medhurst did work on this. CNN showing up to 2 months late to tell you what I showed you in surgical detail during week 1 of the war, that Iran mopped the floor with U.S. bases. NBC last week, this was just a week ago, Iran caused more extensive damage to U.S. military bases than publicly known. Obviously, you made mention of the Nick Fuentes report, casualty cover-up. That was April 1st. And just like the Iraq war, you're seeing similar lies repeat themselves. So this was about 6 months into the Iraq war. Al Jazeera did a piece, America's Secret Casualties. The U.S. military has grossly underreported its casualties in Iraq by simply not declaring incidents where no soldiers are killed, according to new figures that will shock the American public. More than 6,000 servicemen and women have been evacuated for medical reasons since the war began, 4 times the number reported to have been wounded. The British newspaper The Observer reported on Sunday. Of course, this was September of 2003. The U.S. military and their bosses in the administration have portrayed the invading forces' casualties as being relatively light. The new figures will pressure President George Bush to try harder to share the burden of occupying Iraq with other nations. Yeah, no, that's the lesson when something like this happens, is we need more bodies over there to get more bloodied up. But, people ask, well, how could they really cover up casualties or fatalities? And I suppose fatalities are harder to cover up if someone actually dies. But here you have precedent. During the early days of the Iraq war, the government, in order to, I guess, for the same reasons that the Trump administration is doing now, to keep support for the war where it is, as opposed to have it slip even further into unpopular territory, just not being very forthcoming about just how hard we are getting hit. So there is precedent for this. So for people who say, well, they couldn't pull that off, well, they did. They did. So according to this report, they were able to conceal 4,500 injuries in the early days of that war.
Yeah, and I know you said we're making progress and that it only took a month or 2 months for CNN to admit some of this stuff. But if you, in terms of WMD, like the cause of the war, like how many years do you think it'll be till they admit that the reason we're attacking Iran right now has to do with the petrodollar and dollar hegemony and a proxy war with China? I don't know if the U.S. is going to admit that anytime soon.
I don't think they'll ever admit that. I wonder how long it's going to take for the media to, essentially scapegoat Netanyahu. And the reason I kind of put an asterisk next to scapegoat is because I am definitely of the opinion that the Israelis tricked Donald Trump into prosecuting this war. Now, so you say, well, if you feel that way, why would you say we're scapegoating Netanyahu? Well, I think what you just got at is the reason. They'll never talk about the real reason. Richard Medhurst did a whole documentary on this that he put out, I think, a few weeks ago, and his new Substack is going around about how, this is actually very good for oil companies and these multinational corporations, how essentially his theory is that the United States is just basically forcing the world into a sort of petro-gas dollar economic system. Did you just write an article about, you wrote something, or you covered this recently on one of your shows about the sort of hidden oil war under all this?
Yeah, I have covered it on my live stream, and yeah, I can't remember when, several weeks ago, Substack, Really Camp Substack, about this being about the petrodollar. I mean, that's why, when Wesley Clark said his famous words that he heard in 2001, immediately following 9/11, that's why Iran was the key to the list, was, not because we just don't like Iran or because we really want to protect Israel. It has to do with the strength of the petrodollar, and also why the attack on Iran and the attack on Venezuela happened within months of each other. It has to do with protecting the dollar and dollar hegemony, which is being lost. But hilariously, it's having a boomerang effect. It's having the opposite effect, because you have so many countries around the world that are going, wow, not only is the U.S. unhinged and we need to diversify outside of the dollar, but also we need to get off oil as much as we can because it's simply not safe. Now, China has known this for a while. They really ramped up their efforts to both store a crazy amount of oil in case of these rough times, but also they're putting in 5 nuclear power plants worth of green energy per week. You can go read those articles that have been reported, and the reasons for that is because they saw in Trump's first term that that a big weakness of theirs was the fact that Trump or another unhinged U.S. president could attack their energy sources, go after Iran and Venezuela and Russia. And sure enough, that's what the U.S. is doing. But so far, it hasn't really slowed China because China's been preparing for this.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of the world has been preparing for this. And, I think the crux of what Medhurst was arguing, I saw his documentary, haven't had a chance to read his full report, is that this is sort of our answer to that. This is our attempt at sort of cornering the market to keep the dollar dominant for as long as we possibly can, in the face of, emerging alliances like BRICS, India, China, right? Exactly.
And just to add one little aspect to that is Trump had this planned trip to China. It was supposed to happen back like maybe a week after it was scheduled for like a week after we attacked Iran. And I think it's quite clear that Trump thought, well, hold on, let me back up a little. Trump had his tariff war with China. We lost that tariff war in an epic fashion because China had the, forgive the phrase, Trump card, which was the rare earth mineral processing. If we don't have that, then we can't even operate our computers and our targeting systems and everything else. So Trump was thinking, well, we'll capture their energy sources, Iran and Venezuela, and then I'll go meet with him and I'll say, you better give us the goddamn rare earths and give us a great deal, or else we have your oil. And so he succeeds so quickly with Maduro, at least, there hasn't been regime change in Venezuela, but they are making a deal on the oil. And so that goes so well in Trump's mind that he goes, oh, we'll just kill Khomeini and then I'll walk into China saying, hey, we got everything and you better do whatever I say in this deal. And then it doesn't go that way. It goes completely opposite. It all backfires, blows up in his face. And guess what? He pushes back the China trip because he doesn't have the cards to play anymore.
Right. He can't go in there until, that's interesting. Okay. So then where do you think it goes from here? Because this is, I think you're onto something there that, he thought he was going to go into China with a hand to play. Now he doesn't have a hand to play. Now we're in this sort of indefinite ceasefire. Where do you think it goes from here?
That's really tough to know. Now we're blockading their blockade. Many people thought that Trump would just declare victory and basically it would go back to the way it was because he realized that the U.S. was fucked. But he is he's such a psychopath. Like, he doesn't care what ramifications happen around the world unless it hurts the economy and therefore his legacy, or hurts the U.S. dollar and therefore his wealth. So he doesn't care that you're going to see starvation soon in Africa and Asia and stuff if this isn't resolved. I don't know. I don't know where it goes. I mean, I think it's quite possible that the U.S. Basically does in the coming month declare victory somehow and walks away with basically a worse hand than we had before, with Iran controlling the Strait of Hormuz even more than they did before, having a toll booth so that they get paid for it. But yeah, I don't know. It's really tough to predict Trump, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially since I mean we're already. I mean, I don't know if how you count these ceasefires, but we're already well past the 4 to 6 week window, right? Whenever they launch one of these things, oh, Iraq is 6 days, 6 weeks, maybe 6 months. Oh, the war in Iran will be out of there in 4 to 6 weeks. Well, 6 weeks would have been April 15th, and now it's May 3rd.
Well, and he had the 60-day obligation where he was supposed to get congressional approval after that, and so that day has come and gone, but they claimed they no longer need congressional approval because the ceasefire counts as an end to hostilities.
Yeah,
so,
he sent that letter to Congress saying hostilities have ended. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's got that to deal with. Not that Congress has any power really. So, but yeah.
Yeah, he says hostilities have ended, but they still deserve to die, right? They haven't suffered enough for what they've done to us. I mean, during the first few weeks of this, we were kind of hanging on every word because we thought, is this going to be the day where it all comes to a head and we got to like lamb it to Canada before the nukes hit New York City? But now it's to the point where I was talking with someone last night who's going to be a guest on the show in the future, and they said, at this point, like, I don't even pay attention to what Trump says anymore. At this point, it just has become noise because, 3-4 times a day, it's, well, the war is over, we won, but we'll wipe them out if they don't come to the table and be smart. Like, at a certain point, you just render yourself sort of background noise.
Yeah, I don't take any of his words at face value. Sometimes I will try and predict what he's trying to cover up or what he's freaking out about, like when he was giving his like most unhinged tweets about Iran, like we're going to destroy their entire civilization tomorrow, open the fucking strait. And that this is a guy who never curses. To me, it just reeked of like, oh, we are desperate and we are screwed. Like we meaning U.S. government. So to me, like you can maybe glean some stuff from it, but no, you never take it at face value. I will say that I do think there's a great argument to be made, and I've written some about this, that this will be shown as like the moment of the end of the U.S. empire. There was a good analysis, and I can't remember, it was maybe Consortium News, looking historically at other empires and saying the real end of the British Empire, which had been fading for a while, was the, I believe, 1956 Suez Canal situation with Egypt, which was almost identical in a lot of ways. Like Britain was furious that the canal had become socialized under Nasser. And so they said, well, we'll go in there and we'll take him out. And they tried to kill him multiple times. And Nasser, whose military was defeated rather quickly, just sunk a bunch of ships across the canal and closed the canal. And Britain was kind of brought to their knees. They had without the canal closed, they were just fucked economically. They needed to go to the IMF for some massive bailout. And many point to that as like the nail in the coffin of the British Empire. And so there's a lot of similarities between that and right now in the U.S.
Oh, yeah. No, there's definitely a finality in the air when it comes to all of this. Like it does really feel like a very tumultuous time. And, in these last days of empire, you don't know how that is going to go. I mean, you really don't. And I think one of the ironies of this is that in Trump's first term, for all of the sort of bellicose posturing and some hostile acts, i.e. the Soleimani killing, you had diplomatic gestures toward the North Koreans. You had, I would say, a healthy relationship with the Russians, where there was a hope that maybe the empire could be brought in for a softer landing under Trump, especially given how hostile Biden was with the war in Ukraine and everything. But that has not come to pass. It seems like this is basically Bush's second term with more advanced AI and a more psychologically unstable executive at the head.
Yeah, and I when after Trump's first term, when we didn't think he was coming back to office for a while, I had said like some of the most revealing things about how the U.S. empire and the U.S. machinery and the U.S. war machinery work were those moments where Trump, despite being a fucking psychopath, was actually working for peace in ways that the U.S. empire had not. Like you said, with North Korea, where he did want to make a deal with North Korea. Technically, we're still at war with North Korea since the Korean War. There's no end to it. And And yet the machine kicked into high gear. The media, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, all of them about how, oh my God, Trump's going to make a deal with North Korea. Like, this is horrific. And the whole machine kicked into gear to make sure that would not happen, that basically a war, a Cold War at the moment with North Korea would continue. And same with the proxy war in Ukraine. I mean, the first time Trump was impeached, it had to do with not sending missiles to Ukraine. This is not saying Trump is Mr. Peace, but it's saying in those rare moments where he was working towards peace, the machine fucking kicked into high gear and stopped it.
Yep. 100%. All right. Angry Bird says, Lee, you're still the best looking bloke on YouTube. Free the Middle East from small hats and USA imperialism. Thank you, Angry Bird. Well, Lee, you are a small hat too, right? You're Jewish. And I'm Jewish.
I am atheist by choice, Jewish by birth and bar mitzvah, I guess.
Jewish. Oh, so you were bar mitzvahed?
Oh, yeah. Bar mitzvah.
Wow.
And I actually did, I've been a stand-up comic for a few decades now. And so I did a stand-up show recently and told the story of me going on Birthright.
Oh, so you went on the Birthright trip. Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Which I went late. Back then, the max age for Birthright was 26. And basically, I was just like, well, free trip to Israel. Let me just see what this is like. But at that point, I already knew Israel was like an apartheid kind of horrific state. But I didn't quite know as much as I know now. But I was just like, let's see what this is like. And sure enough, it's like crazy propaganda. It's insane.
Wow. So you were, if you don't mind, can you give us like a super condensed version? So how old were you when you went?
26, which back then was the oldest you could be. Most people go at like 16, 18, 20. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I know a couple people who I knew went like when I was in high school. And, they asked if I wanted to go. And I said, no, absolutely not. No, I don't want to go. They're like, why? And I didn't know anything about Israel-Palestine. I just knew it was this is the thing. They say Israel's a safe haven for Jews. They're like, why do you not want to go? I said, I don't want to get fucking blown up. That's why I don't want It seems dangerous to me. I don't know. It seems like it seems volatile. Like, I feel pretty safe as a Jewish guy in New York. I think I'm fine.
Yeah,
plenty of us around here, and I had no real idea. I mean, I really didn't. I mean, this was like back when I was like, I don't know, like I was in high school, so I was just learning about all this stuff for the first time.
Yeah. I'll give my 1 minute version, which you go there and they use. I didn't know it at the time exactly, but they use every form of kind of psychological warfare that you don't know you're being subjected to, like sleep deprivation would be a big one. You show up, you're jet lagged, especially if you didn't sleep on the flight, and they then tell you basically get 3 hours of sleep before they have to get going on like a hike. And at the time you're like, oh, I guess this is just a schedule. But no, it's your brain is like a newborn baby. Like, you're like, what is happening? Like, and so they can just implant, their loads of ideas and crap into your head. But the other thing was, you're on a bus with all these people, and, a lot of them are young, 18-year-olds, hormones like crazy. And for 3 days or 4 days or something, they bring the IDF on the bus to ride with you. But it's not big, tough, steroidal 25-year-olds. Right. It's little 18-year-old girls and stuff with machine guns around their neck.
Wow.
And I the way I put it, I was the only one who left that bus with my finger virginity intact. Like, there was so much going on, and and they want it like it's designed that way. It is like, it's not sex trafficking, but it's on the cusp of, it's like sex stop and go, a lot of braking, like not quite traffic, but close.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, it's always been like a thing. Yeah, you go and they throw girls at you, right, to make you feel like, wow, what an amazing place. But I didn't realize it was like that aggressive that quickly.
Yeah, and several of the people on the trip, met an IDF soldier that they were dating and decided to extend their trip. So basically, like, they're going to live in Israel and with this new girlfriend or boyfriend. And
wow.
It's like by design. By the way, one of the biggest funders of Birthright since its founding, Les Wexner, Mr. Epstein's manager.
Wow. Well, didn't Sheldon Adelson have a big hand in that too?
I think he might have been a big funder.
I think Adelson was a big funder of that also.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a couple of Jewish friends who asked like, why wouldn't you go? And that was always the reason. I always just thought, too risky. Plus, I had a girlfriend at the time, so I guess it's a good thing I didn't go. Would have gotten in trouble. I didn't realize.
Good idea.
Didn't realize what kind of honeypotting was going on over there. Kudos to you for staying true to yourself over there.
Staying true to myself.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because you went over there kind of understanding essentially what Israel was, because you were, more mature adult. I would have been like a teenager when I went. So
yeah, no, a lot of my friends went in high school.
Wow.
I didn't go on the trip. They were probably 17. And if I'd gone on that, and by the way, I heard stories when they got back and everyone was fucking everyone. And I at that point I knew so little that I would have fallen for all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have fallen for all of it. There'd have been like 8 little Lee camps fighting in the IDF right now. If you
that's the other. That was my other point about that trip. Was it was like, dude, thank God I didn't like have sex with an IDF soldier using some camel skin, condom that's just there for moral support, and then I end up with a apartheid colonial anchor baby.
Yeah, exactly. You could have a bunch of kids doing the genocide in Gaza now, right? The timeline would have worked out. Wow, dodged a bullet. All right, we'll take a couple more chats, and then we'll do one more segment before I let you go. Thanks so much for making time for us tonight. Appreciate you as always. Hey Lee, I had a good time having a beer with you on day one of this stupid war. Got to catch up on your new show. Don't know if you'll catch this. Have a good one, Keaton. That's Stoop Sign. I guess you had a beer with him on day one of the war. I don't know what his real name is. He calls into the show. He's a patron. I don't know what his real name is. Otherwise, I'd have passed it along. Vienticus, all I heard out of Ted Cruz's mouth was right-wing trans rights are getting eroded. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Okay, let's go into our next segment here because I got Lee till 8:30, so I wanted to do one more segment with you here. This is a crazy one, just absolutely horrible here. Oh, did I accidentally delete my slideshow? Yes, I did. There it is. Okay. All right. So a few days ago in the UK, there was a tragic stabbing of 2 Jewish people in London. It was declared a terrorist incident. There were no fatalities. Luckily, London Mayor Sadiq Khan condemned what he called an appalling attack on 2 Jewish Londoners, the latest in a series of incidents in the British capital. There was a third person stabbed, apparently, that was a Muslim that didn't catch the headline there, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Metropolitan Police said they have arrested a 45-year-old man in connection with a stabbing attack that injured 2 Jewish people in London, which they called a terrorist incident. A 45-year-old man who was a British national born in Somalia was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder, Metropolitan Police said in a statement. He was initially taken to hospital, but has since been discharged and has been taken to a London police station where he remains in police custody. Metropolitan Police Assistant Commissioner Lawrence Taylor told reporters that counterterrorism officers are investigating and working to establish whether this attack was deliberately targeting the Jewish community in London, while Commissioner Mark Rowley called it an attack on British Jews. Britain's Prime Minister earlier described the incident in the North London suburb of Golders Green as an anti-Semitic attack. The neighborhood, which has a large Jewish population, has been the scene of a number of anti-Semitic incidents in recent weeks. So, what are they going to do to handle this? Well, you got it. UK Starmer eyes banning some pro-Palestine protests. Prime Minister Keir Starmer says the phrase globalize the intifada should be completely off limits. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer says some pro-Palestine marches could be banned and people who use the phrase globalize the intifada could be prosecuted. In an interview broadcast by the BBC on Saturday, Starmer advocated for tighter language restriction at pro-Palestine marches, adding that in some cases, rallies could be prohibited altogether. I'm a big defender of freedom of expression, peaceful protests, he told the BBC, as long as you only say the things we want you to say. No, that wasn't his response. He said, but when there are chants like globalize the intifada, that's completely off limits. Clearly, there should be tougher action in relation to that, he added. So here is a Sky News report on the initiative to suspend some of these protests.
Der Minister sagte, dass einige Pro-Palästina-Märsche verboten werden.
What the hell is that? Why did that happen like that? Sorry, that's not the right video. Why did that download in sorry about that, folks. Why did that download in Spanish? I'm just going to have to play this here. Pardon me, folks.
You get the live version.
Yes, good. Do it live.
Do it live.
Do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. Starmer. Flags out. Here it is. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. We will do that. Oops. Let's see. Share screen. There we go. Okay. There we are. There we are. Sorry about that, folks. Okay. Here we go. In English this time.
The UK Prime Minister says some pro-Palestine marches could be banned because of the cumulative effect they've had on the Jewish community. Protest organisers criticising Keir Starmer, warning the move could undermine free speech and the right to protest.
Almost every weekend, it's easy to find a pro-Palestine march, even if it's a smaller one like this in Lewisham, southeast London. Some hold these marches responsible for the troubling rise in anti-Semitic attacks and abuse. The Prime Minister has said marches could be restricted.
When you hear some of those chants, globalise the intifada would be the one that I would pick out, then clearly there should be tougher action in relation to that. Many people in the Jewish community have said to me, it's the repeat nature, it's the cumulative effect. Now, I accept that, which is why we intend to deal with cumulative effects.
I think it is time to ban these marches. They are trying to let people know that there is support for harming Jews. We need to make sure that that is stopped completely. Otherwise, we're going to continue seeing horrific events like we saw in Golders Green this week.
Some here understand that call for restraint.
It's horrible to think that any community anywhere is living in fear, and if a small reduction would help that community to feel more settled, there may be a place for it.
It's not long after the march begins that the familiar, controversial chant rings out.
The river to the sea, a lot of people...
The man with the microphone didn't want to talk, he was busy.
So this is obviously a small-scale protest, but what Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, is talking about is the cumulative effect of having march after march on the pro-Palestinian cause.
There have been 34 national-scale demonstrations since October the 7th, 2023. Their organisers reject claims that marches lead to anti-Semitism.
Our stewards, when they see inappropriate slogans, intervene and ask people, we don't have the force of law, ask people not to use them, and by and large, they comply. So we have to be absolutely clear here. There is no threat whatsoever to the Jewish community from these marches. In fact, they are attended by thousands of Jewish people.
Many who are part of that community disagree.
I think most people would accept that the sheer frequency of these pro-Palestine marches, the intimidation that is effected on the small Jewish community, and other factors such as the arrests and the state of our society now for Jewish people, all cause a reasonable judgment to be made that these marches should be stopped.
They won't stop here in southeast London or on streets up and down the country unless the government intervenes and decides the balance between freedom of speech and the safety of British Jews. Tom Cheshire, Sky News, Lewisham.
I believe Caitlin Johnston wrote a whole article about this segment in particular being just a perfect example of propaganda and just how sneakily they create this causal relationship between speech and violence. And once you accept a causal relationship between political speech and violence, well, that's the end of freedom of speech. You can't have freedom of speech where the government assumes a relationship like that. And in this case, as we'll see in a moment, there is no relationship whatsoever between these protests and this man who stabbed these 3 people. But do you have any reaction to that video?
Well, I was going to say, before you even talk about the truth of the stabbing, let's for a moment picture this as the man did stab 3 Jews, and he did it because of Israel's actions. That is squarely on the fact that Israel has told the world, and I don't mean just small statements, I mean they have some of the largest propaganda machines in the world, has told the world that all Jews equal Israel, and Israel equals all Jews, and every choice Israel makes equals all Jews. And they want that to be what people believe. And they want you to believe that any insult towards Israel is an insult towards all Jews. And that creates anti-Semitism. It creates people that think that all Jews stand for genocide, that all Jews are supporting the genocide in Gaza, the genocide in South Lebanon. Like, Israel has created whatever real anti-Semitism there is. Now, most anti-Semitism, I'm going to throw out a number of like 90% that Israel claims is actually people just criticizing Israeli actions, such as the ongoing genocide in Gaza. But there is some real anti-Semitism, and almost all of that is thanks to the fact that Israel has told people to conflate the state of Israel, the nation state of Israel, with all Jews.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been saying from the beginning that this is going to, unfortunately, obviously, I mean, nothing justifies stabbing people, but it's going to unfortunately create blowback sort of incidents. Now, I don't think that's what this was, as we'll get into here. But, the conflation of Zionism with Judaism, of course, is a major fueler of actual anti-Semitism and of anti-Semitic violence in so many cases. Now, here is Jewish Rabbi Herschel Gluck with Owen Jones dropping a massive truth bomb on UK politicians. He completely exposes how they are weaponizing Jewish suffering to ban pro-Palestine protests.
Very difficult to understand. What is the connection between the protests and the person who tried to kill 2 Jews yesterday? There's no logical connection at all. It's a total leap of faith. And therefore, it is very disturbing that politicians are using Jewish suffering as a weaponized lever for their own pet projects. And this is out of order. The right to protest, the right of expression are very fundamental rights in Britain and for humanity. In Judaism, a person is called someone who speaks, someone who communicates. And if we deny people the right to communicate, we are denying them their very humanity. So therefore, I find it very, very disturbing that people are weaponizing Jews and weaponizing Jewish suffering to deny people their very basic human rights.
Yep. And talk about crazy. How about this? This seems relevant from Double Down News. Remember when the police dragged in 87-year-old Holocaust survivor Stephen Kapos to be questioned under caution because he was on a protest against genocide and wished to lay flowers for the dead children of Gaza outside the BBC? Watch a couple minutes of this.
Today, because Stephen Kapos, the Holocaust survivor, has been pulled into a police station for questioning about his involvement in what was a completely peaceful protest.
But I think it's a very dangerous slide
old man with a cane
towards complete authoritarianism and even in the direction of fascism. We can see that in Germany and the US, the suppression of protest and free speech is violent. We have to resist as much as possible.
As Stephen's son, it's really it's distressing to know that he's being interviewed by the police at the moment.
Holocaust survivor Stephen Kaposh. He was supposedly breaking through the police line. Well, I can tell you, he's not in any physical state to break through a police line. He's 87.
As the son of a Holocaust survivor, I am in despair at what is happening, the genocide that's happening in Gaza. And I'm also in despair at the fact that here in Britain, the Metropolitan Police have decided to pursue an actual Holocaust survivor in his late 80s.
I think the fact that an 87-year-old Holocaust survivor is so warmly welcomed on the marches, universally, he's loved. I think it gives a lie to the fact that there's anything remotely anti-Semitic going on. And in fact, the conflation of anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism is just a way, an attempt to silence protest.
Of course. So this is from Socialist Worker. Labor exploits anti-Semitic attack to target Muslims and Palestine protests. Once again, the British state is deliberately conflating Jewish people and the Israeli settler colony. The Labor government sniffs an opportunity to get back on the front foot after setbacks over repressing the Palestine movement. Remember, they said that Palestine Action was a prescribed organization, and the court struck that down. That was considered a defeat for the Labor government, and now this looks like perhaps compensation for that. Zach Polanski, the leader of the Green Party, slammed Labor for, quote, using Jewish pain to justify an authoritarian agenda. The best way to defend democratic rights is to use them in mass numbers. The Palestine Solidarity and anti-fascist movements are urging everyone to London on Saturday, May 16th. They have called a demonstration under the slogans Nakba 78, Justice for Palestine, and United Against Tommy Robinson and the Far Right. Robinson called a mobilization in central London on the same day as the Nakba Day March, which marks Israel's ethnic cleansing of Palestinians since 1948. The Metropolitan Police, which is spearheading the British state's repression of the Palestine movement, wants to give the fascists free rein in central London. So that's their theory, is to try and suppress perhaps turnout to avoid any skirmishes on that day. Golders Green suspect, though, referred to counter-extremism program in 2020. Police. So they have this program in the UK called Prevent, which I guess is meant to intercept problematic people before they lash out and do something crazy. And apparently he was on their radar in 2020, which was a few years before these pro-Palestine marches broke out. So that right there goes to show you that there's not much evidence at all that he was inspired by these recent protests to do this. He was on the government's radar 6 years ago, according to reports. Now, here's John Reese, who makes a similar point and points out that actually a Muslim man was stabbed as well.
Against the backdrop, while these marches have been going on for weeks and months, against the backdrop of arson attacks, stabbings, murders. What Sir Michael Ellis, former Attorney General, was saying there is that the cumulative effect on the Jewish community and the society's response to the Jewish community, it just needs to stop. There needs to be a circuit break.
Well, and the problem with this kind of analysis is that it acts as if there's a causal relationship between the demonstrations and the attacks on Jewish people. But as we now know from the background of the person who committed this latest obscenity in Golders Green, actually the connection is that they were mentally ill, that they were in the Prevent program. That very morning they'd attacked a Muslim man, which isn't as part of the news cycle, unfortunately, because it would frame it rather differently. There is a failure in the Prevent program. There is a failure to protect people from these kind of individuals. But the these kind of individuals are not attached to the Palestine movement. They are not attached to the marches. There's no evidence that they've ever seen a march, let alone been on one, or that the organisers would for a second condone it. So this connection is completely fallacious. And what the Prime Minister and others are doing is weaponising and instrumentalising claims of anti-Semitism to try and marginalise and defeat their political opponents.
Absolutely. We have a lot of viewers in the UK. When Russ went to London to cover the Day X protests during the Julian Assange hearings, we met a lot of people over there who watched the show and listened to the show. And to all of our British dissidents over there, I don't know how you guys do it. I really don't know. I don't know how you live like this. Like, how do you have political conversations in such an incredibly stifling climate? I mean, it is just absolutely unfathomable how stupid you can be to think that suppressing speech is going to curb violence. The age-old truth about censorship is that censorship only pushes ideas underground and creates more extremism. But of course, their goal is not actually to curb violence. Their goal is what he said. Their goal is to intimidate political opposition. And once you accept that, it all makes sense, I think.
Well, I wouldn't feel too bad for the Brits, considering we've had some people protesting ICE who were murdered recently. So
That's
we're
true.
not we're not exactly clear of it over here. But it's too bad that Prevent program that they mentioned didn't stumble upon a young Keir Starmer maybe and get him in that program early, so he didn't end up supporting genocide later in his career. You know, maybe he could have been de-radicalized in some way.
Yeah, that's true. I'm doing a segment later in the show about the new Doctors Without Borders report on the weaponization of water. And it was Keir Starmer who, right at the beginning of this, said, yeah, they have a right to cut off the power and cut off the water to Gaza. Yeah, I think they do have that right. And
I think he and Sarah Silverman said that. Or was it Amy Schumer? One of them said they have the right to cut off the water.
Yeah, I don't follow either of them very closely anymore, but that does not surprise me. Yeah, I mean, the repression is just insane over there. I mean, you're right. Like, this is an authoritarian country in a lot of ways as well. But they can't, at least not yet, drag you off the street for saying the wrong thing, unless you're like a student here on a visa. But if you're an American citizen so far, you don't actually get swept up for uttering the wrong phrase. Whereas in Britain, it is so easy. I mean, mass arrests at these protests. We have people in our chat who were arrested for just like wearing a T-shirt saying they support Palestine action back when that was, a prescribed group. And now it's not. And they're fighting that. They're fighting that in court to try and be able to what? Like, what do you think is going to happen? This guy was on your radar for 6 years. He was clearly a mentally ill person. There is absolutely zero evidence connecting the protests to this act of violence. The whole idea, well, it's a cumulative effect.
I know. I feel like there was some sort of like, Israel paid some PR company to come up with this cumulative effect wording where we can act like any protest. You get 6 people carrying signs down the street saying end genocide. And well, that doesn't seem that bad, but the cumulative effect on Jews around the world.
Yeah, the cumulative effect. You make it as vague as possible so that people are afraid to open their mouths. That's what is so oppressive about these anti-speech laws, is that it forces everyone to walk on eggshells and self-censor to the point where, yeah, man, like the UK is just relentless. It's relentless. It's been 2.5 years of horror after horror after horror. Even Keir Starmer has been forced to admit some of these war crimes on the part of the Israeli state, and yet they're still going after people who are protesting this with such tenacity and such ruthlessness. It's really horrible. It's really, really horrible.
Yeah, it's despicable.
It's absolutely like dystopian. All right. Well, Lee, I want to thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thanks so much for making the time. Appreciate it. Always great to see you. I'm going to put the YouTube tag up here at Unredacted tonight where they can catch you. Where else can people find you before you head out?
Yeah, thanks so much. I always love joining you, and you do amazing work. I'm performing live in New York and Los Angeles. I don't get to perform live comedy as much as I used to, but big shows with John F. O'Donnell, also from Redacted tonight, and those you can find out dates and details and everything at leecamp.com/schedule. And then along with the Unredacted Tonight YouTube page, because it is so suppressed, I would love for everyone to subscribe, even just for free, at Real Lee Camp on Substack. So realleecamp.substack.com. It seems to be less suppressed than I am on a lot of other platforms, so that would be amazing.
And you can live stream to Substack now, right? We haven't figured out how to do it yet, but I will at some point.
It's certainly easy. You just get the stream key and do it. And I do it. I don't do it for every live stream, but I do it for some of them. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, realleecamp.substack.com. It's important to support free speech media in these times of censorship. Lee, thanks so much for making time for us. It was great to see you again, and we'll be in touch, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, man. Keep fighting.
You got it. Bye-bye. All right, that's Lee Camp, everybody. Round of applause for Lee. Thanks, Lee, for joining us tonight. We got plenty more to do tonight. We got Jake in the booth tonight. Round of applause to Jake, please. Round of applause for Lee Camp in the chat. Always great to see Lee, and always great to see all of you. We got 2204 strong in the YouTube chat. And we got 927 in the like column. There we go. How do you like that? See, I'm getting better. Why am I good? Why am I better now at the headbanging than I used to be? I think it's because I do it shittier than I used to. I think that's the key. The key to headbanging is not to do it very well. The more convincing the headbang, the stronger the headache that you get. All right, folks, we're going to move right on along with some more chats, rants, and plenty more segments. Q&A tonight also over on Rumble for the after party. But before we go any further, just want to give you guys an update, of course, on the Rumble wallet. Quick question: how much control do you have over your money right now? Well, technology has changed everything, and now it has changed the way money works. And when you sign up for Rumble Wallet, you are able to tip your favorite Rumble creators through Super Chats and Rumble Rants, just exactly as you would through the regular Rumble chat. You can sign up for wallet.rumble.com. You could also scan the QR code here on the screen. You could also download the Rumble Wallet from the App Store. We keep nearly 100% of what you send us on this new Rumble Rant tipping platform. So you can tip all of your favorite creators by going to wallet.rumble.com. You send the super chats or the Rumble Rants just the same as you would on any other platform, while YouTube and Twitch take up to 50% fees. This takes zero. The setup is simple. It connects you with MoonPay, so you can use your debit card, your credit card, or your bank account, be up and running in minutes. It takes minutes to set up, and then once you're set up, you can tip your favorite Rumble creators like us directly. So do this now. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and download the Rumble Wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and you are in the game. So get started with Rumble Wallet today. It's a great way to support the free speech internet creator economy right here on Rumble. So that's wallet.rumble.com. Okay. Let's move right on along here. Okay. Let's take some super chats and some Rumble rants over here. Vianticus Prime: to me, needing to say you love your country is like needing to say you love your family while your dad regularly beats you and shoves his least favorite wrench up your ass. Oy. Oy. Thanks, Vianticus. Semitic means language, so what is anti-Semitic? mean, that's right. That's right. The Semites, it's all about your roots. Back to the Semitic languages and dialects. Maybe I'll call in at some point. We'll see. I'll tell you what, if there's ever a story you want to cover that's got a lot of scientific moving parts, let me know and we'll see what we can work out. I'm talking about to the post-show Q&As, Vienticus. Are you not a member? You might not be a member. You should sign up for all the Rumble Rants you give us. If you just give us 5 fewer Rumble Rants a month and become a member, or if you sign up at Rumble Premium, either way, you can get call-in access. EO Shush, BB tricked Trump by having Epstein film him in compromising positions in the 90s. Why is Adelson's $100 million so much more than Elon's $300 million and Twitter platform? I tend to think you're right about that, my friend. I tend to think it's about a little more than just the 100 million. I thought it was 200 million, but no, I do think there is some more to it than that. Eric Rousseau, Sweden seized oil tanker Jinhui in the Baltic Sea and plans to give oil to Ukraine. Sweden has joined Trump's pirate navy. Interesting. Wow. When did that break? Mountain Star Studio, OG Lee, thanks for the comedy in Seeing Atrocity. Thank you, Mountain Star. Appreciate that. Eric Rousseau, may the 4th be with you. We are fighting Emperor Trump with shit-lived George R. Binks. That's right. Thanks, Eric Rousseau. Here's a video on the Chinese steel situation. Thanks for that link, Vienticus. Appreciate it. Andy Gardner says, I went to Birthright as a human spittoon. Ha! Good one. On to not clip the short segment of you two talking Birthright. Yeah, I probably will. I'm glad he shared that story because I knew he was Jewish, but I didn't know like he was bar mitzvahed and that he took it that seriously. And yeah, that's crazy that he went on the Birthright. That was a good story. Sonia Jayhawk, thanks for the $10. I've been with Lee since RT, DD since JD, my 2 go-tos, and now Ian. Love y'all. Courage. Keep fighting. Courage, Sonia Hawk. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Appreciate your support. Yeah, Lee has been around. Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. 2008. Wow. So 20 years. This could be considered shadow banned. I have subscribed for 4 or so years and had to click on my subscription tab to find the live stream. Yep, could be. You're not the only person who said that. We've gotten quite a few comments like that over the past year, I would say. We've gotten a lot more. I mean, when it comes to that, I mean, you just never know. You just never know what the reality is. All you can do is keep on keeping on, right? Hope Division, y'all would be a great blunt rotation. Thank you. Although I don't know how great a blunt rotation that would be. I don't really smoke. I don't smoke weed. Never was a weed guy. Would Lee and DD come to Dynasty Typewriter in MacArthur Park, Los Angeles? Beautiful little theater. I saw Lee there. Fun time. Come eat at Langer's. Oh, okay. Yeah, Langer's is right there, right? Isn't MacArthur Park like in dire straits now? I remember Jimmy took Russ to Langer's when Russ was out in Los Angeles. That's a famous spot. The Dynasty Typewriter. I have to look that up. I'd like to go back to California. I got family out in California. My uncle lives out there. I have a bunch of family. Some of them moved away, but I had quite a bit of family out there. We would go to LA every couple of years for a while, but I haven't been almost 10 years now. It's crazy. Last time I was in Los Angeles was 2017. Nuts how time has flown. Vienticus says, when I was a kid, I knew kids that came to America from behind the Iron Curtain. The UK sounds so much like what those kids used to tell about their lives were like. Thank you, Vienticus. Appreciate that very much. All right, everybody. Well, please do smash that like button. Please do smash that subscribe button. If you are not already subscribed, please check to make sure you're still subscribed if you think you're subscribed. Same thing, hit that follow button over on Rumble, please. And thank you very much for all of your support. Thank you very much for being here tonight. It is Sunday night, which means we will be heading over to Rumble for our post-show Q&A following the conclusion of the program, but we do have quite a bit more to cover. So let's get into things. Here is Greta Thunberg issuing an urgent statement regarding the members of the Global Samud Flotilla, most of which were apprehended and then sent to Crete in Greece, but some have remained in detention. So she gives us an update on this.
The other day, Israel illegally intercepted over 20 boats, civilian ships of the Global Samud Flotilla, and violently abducted almost 200 of the participants over 1,000 kilometers away from Gaza. The majority of these were released and dropped off in Crete after many had been so beaten up that they had to be admitted to hospital following a coordination between the Israeli and Greek government. 2 of these still remain detained and were illegally brought to Israel, where it has been confirmed that they are now being tortured. And these people are safe: a Swedish and Spanish citizen with Palestinian papers, and Tiago, a Brazilian citizen. They are being detained based on made-up accusations following their commitment to Palestinian liberation. They have devoted their lives to stand and act in solidarity with Palestine and oppressed people. And they are committed friends, comrades, fathers and sons, and we demand their immediate release. They are being held, imprisoned and tortured alongside thousands of Palestinians who are held without charges and being tortured as well in Israeli prisons. And the Swedish, the Spanish and the Brazilian governments have to act immediately. The international community has to demand their freedom and justice. And alongside this, several of our Tunisian comrades from the Global Samud Flotilla are also being imprisoned following their activism in solidarity with Palestine in the Global Samud Flotilla. Free them all.
Yes, so Israel court extends detention of Gaza flotilla activists. An Israeli court has extended by 2 days the detention of 2 activists arrested aboard a Gaza-bound flotilla that was intercepted by Israeli forces in international waters near Greece, their lawyers said on Sunday. Saif Abu Kashek, a Spanish national, and Brazilian Thiago Avila were detained by Israeli authorities late on Wednesday and brought to Israel, while more than 100 other pro-Palestinian activists aboard the boats were taken to the Greek island of Crete. A court spokesperson confirmed that their remand had been extended until May 5th. The governments of Spain and Brazil issued a joint statement on Friday calling their detention illegal. The activists were part of a second Global Samud Flotilla launched in an attempt to break Israel's blockade of Gaza by delivering humanitarian assistance. The ships had set sail from Barcelona on April 12th. Israeli authorities requested a 4-day extension of their arrest on suspicion of offenses that include assisting the enemy during wartime. I don't understand assisting the enemy during wartime. First of all, it's a humanitarian flotilla. Second of all, they're not Israeli citizens. Why do they have an obligation to the Israeli government? They were kidnapped in international waters. They were hundreds of miles out. Contact with a foreign agent, membership in and providing services to a terrorist organization, and the transfer of property for a terrorist organization, said rights group Adala, which is assisting in the activists' defense. But why were they subject to Israeli jurisdiction near Greece? That seems like a kidnapping. That seems like a kidnapping, and that seems like a kidnapping to the president of Spain, Pedro Sanchez. Here he is demanding their release. We have seen that the Israeli authorities and Netanyahu's government have kidnapped several citizens who were in the fleet moving to Palestine to bring humanitarian aid, and continue reminding the world there are people who suffer in Gaza, in West Jordan, and all of Palestine. Now that Netanyahu has done that to kidnap foreign citizens, one of them Spanish, and taken to Israel, I say several things to Prime Minister Netanyahu. First, is that Spain will always protect its citizens. The second is that we will always defend international law, and this is a new violation of international law. And the third is we want the freedom of the Spanish citizen who has been illegally kidnapped by the Netanyahu government. Here he is. Just about a week ago, Spain's Pedro Sanchez says Israel is not respecting international and humanitarian law in Gaza, the West Bank, or Lebanon, urging the EU to reflect and take action.
En Ucrania y en Oriente Medio, porque hay que recordar que el artículo 2 de ese acuerdo de asociación entre
I'll read this here. This double yardstick that Europe is using in Ukraine and in the Middle East, because it must be remembered that Article 2, the association agreement between the European Union and Israel, speaks of respecting international law, humanitarian law, and clearly neither in Lebanon nor certainly in Jordan, nor of course in Gaza, is Israel respecting it. And that must also lead us to that reflection and that action. Yeah, so you're going to notice a little pattern here. You have the two activists detained, one from Spain, one from Brazil. Of course, Spain and Brazil are two states whose governments, at least, have been amongst the most outspoken against Israel since their genocidal campaign in Gaza. Of course, here is President Lula da Silva very recently saying, I want to say this loud and clear, the Prime Minister of Israel is committing genocide against women and children. This is a historical fact.
O que eu quero dizer alto e bom som é o seguinte: o primeiro-ministro de Israel está praticando um genocídio contra mulheres e crianças. Esse é o dado histórico.
So it doesn't strike me as a coincidence that the two activists who they're not letting go are both from these countries whose leaders have been outspoken against Israel. This is how gangsters work. This is how rogue states operate. This is political terrorism, you could say. They are singling out people from states who have been most politically hostile to them for especially harsh treatment. To me, it is not a coincidence at all that those activists are being singled out for especially brutal treatment and now extended detention. That seems pretty obvious to me, which just goes to show you how there is no pretense of legality, much less morality, to the Israeli state or to any of its allies. I mean, the United States just put out a statement, the State Department, condemning the Samud flotilla. I guess it is the position of Israel's allies to just defer to them. And by defer to them, that means we just allow them to kidnap vessels hundreds of miles off of their coast, act as if the people on those vessels are somehow subject to Israeli jurisdiction, which is, of course, just completely illegal. It's illegal. That's why it is not just a figure of speech. It is completely accurate to call this a kidnapping, especially if you're going to take them into Israel and torture them in an Israeli jail. And so it's a very, very dire situation. It's a very, very upsetting situation. How 7-8 months now into this supposed ceasefire, people who are on humanitarian aid missions are treated this way. And how, for the most part, their own governments don't have their back. They don't have their back. Spain has the back of its people. The Spanish president is a leader, says we will always stand up for our citizens. Well, I don't think it's a coincidence that the leader who says that has his citizens singled out for especially brutal treatment. Same thing for the Brazilian on board as well. I think that is pretty obvious. You're just seeing a level of lawlessness that has really just unmasked not only the United States and the U.S. empire, but really the West in general as a whole. It really is shocking. I mean, just about every one of our segments tonight is Israel related in some way. And in putting the show together, I just couldn't help but think what an absolute shame it is that we're seeing headline after headline after headline as just mind-bogglingly insane as this 2.5 years with after everything that Israel's done, after this massive shift in global sentiment against Israel, you still have a power structure, an international power structure that is just completely paralyzed and completely unwilling to actually make any of that sentiment mean anything. It's very, very upsetting. It's very, very troubling. And we are, of course, going to stay on this story. They are supposed to be released on Tuesday, and we are going to be live on Tuesday in the afternoon. So we hope, obviously, that they are released by then, and we will have more to say on that if and when that happens. Okay, let's go to some more chats here. We got Race Car over here. Thanks for the $50, Race Car. Appreciate that very much, my friend. Where's that digital cowbell? Create a funny joke through manual effort, or does it have to come from a spontaneous thought? That's a great question. I mean, it's subjective. I would imagine this is how it works for everybody. I think the genesis of the joke has to be kind of spontaneous, like, because to me, the crux of humor is irony. And so you have to kind of realize an irony as it exists. And that is kind of a spontaneous, firing off in the mind. So I think that is like the genesis of any sort of like great joke. But then from there, you kind of craft it and shape it and get the timing down. And that's where the writing really becomes a very important part of it, right? You have to take that idea and then mold it into something that has a certain rhythm and a certain pacing and a certain element of surprise to it. So I think that is important. But that's a very, very good question. I'm sure other people who write jokes for a living have their own sort of take on that. But that's how I always thought of it. The funniest thoughts in my brain have always just popped in. I have never had to actually like sit down and workshop it and think about it. Purplism, Plattner is a spook, mass murderer, and proud. Well, looks like he's going to be the next senator from Maine there. I mean, look, this is why I don't really involve myself much with Democratic primaries. You kind of let these processes sort of play out. I'm very much divorced from party politics in that way. He is now free and clear on a path toward the nomination. That's for sure. Jake, you could put the scroll up now. That would be awesome. That would be cool. So, hey, if you like what we do here and you want to help us do more of it, the best way to do so is to become a member. DoDissidents.com/Patreon//Substack or /Locals. Membership starts at just $5 a month. Perks of membership include your name here up on the scroll. You also get call-in access to all of our post-show Q&As, which happen every Sunday night over on Rumble, and tonight is Sunday, so make sure that you head over there for the post-show Q&A and hang out with us. Should be a good time. Always is. Always love hearing from our callers and supporters after the show every Sunday. You also get ad-free live streams emailed to you after they air live. We send you a replay the next day of every live show. You also get post-game live streams, so that's bonus content with patron Q&A call-in once a month, and Film Club with our friends at Right Brain TV. So speaking of that comedy question, our last film club event was Thursday night, where we did a presentation on the George Carlin Live at USC special in 1977. That is still up, of course, for patrons if you want to catch that. That was a fun time had by all that evening. So it's great to make this as worthwhile as we possibly can for all of you guys in exchange for making what we do possible here. So thanks very much to our supporters for supporting what we do. That's dudissidents.com/Patreon/Substack or /locals. So thank you all very, very much for your continued support. Also, you should go and check out Russ's channel, Russ on the Road NYC. He has been uploading some videos from his trip overseas there. So you haven't seen him live in a while, but you could still check in with Russ. Go subscribe to his channel. That's Russ on the Road NYC. He just posted a video at the airport in China, and then he posted some other sort of scenic I don't know if it was a nature preserve or what it was a garden, sort of a shorter video, but definitely go and check that out at Russ on the Road NYC. Thank you all very much for your support. Vienticus Prime says, we live in a criminus regula world. Really is very, very dark. Very, very dark. And, you know, it's funny. I missed the flotilla story when it first happened. And I was very surprised that I missed it because it wasn't all over X in the way that I thought it would be. But these two activists having their detentions extended seems to have put it front and center in my algorithm. It was just very, very strange. Very, very strange that I missed that story first time around. That's one of the other challenges of putting the shows together myself is we have half the eyes sort of roving the internet for topics. So every once in a while, you know, something kind of slips through. But all right, we will move right on along here. Let's see what we got over here. Let me just make sure I have this all queued up here. Beautiful. There we go. All right. So Tucker Carlson sat down with the New York Times here for an interview. I guess they went to his place in Maine, and I guess he has a New York Times room. You know, it's funny how for his podcast, he has like the moose antler chandelier or whatever. But now he's got a nice little kitschy New York Times room, apparently, up here in Maine. And the interviewer here really pressing him on his interview with Nick Fuentes. And this is an interesting back and forth.
I think is more morally repulsive, Ted Cruz or
Who
Nick
do you
Fuentes?
think is more morally repulsive?
Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is a sitting U.S. senator who has called for the killing of people who did nothing wrong, whole populations who advocated for this war. Nick Fuentes is like a kid. He's like 26 or 7. He has no power except his words. Here you have a public official who we pay, who has actual power, who's voting for things, who's making policy decisions. And those decisions would include, in fact, they are focused on the murder of people who did nothing wrong. And yet no one thinks it's a big deal. Well, it's just totally fine. I mean, if there's tape of Nick Fuentes saying we should kill people because we hate their parents, or it's okay to kill children, I would love to see the tape because that's disgusting. And that's basically what the entire U.S. Senate does every single day, and no one notices. Nick Fuentes said something naughty that I disagreed with. He made fun of things that I don't think I would never make fun of them.
He's a white nationalist who's denied the Holocaust. And what I will say,
okay,
from
but
my
is that
own
worse than killing kids?
Is that worse than killing kids? Is that is an objectionable opinion worse than supporting a current Holocaust? You talk about he's denied the Holocaust. You're denying this Holocaust. The New York Times is denying this Holocaust. Ted Cruz is denying this Holocaust. This is a Holocaust. Well, he denied the Holocaust. This is really unbelievable. Like, this interview was maddening at points because here what you're getting is the sort of liberal version of the sort of Zionist sort of Hasbara, which in a way is more maddening, because what this lady gives Tucker from time to time is what I call the liberal cat stare, whereas they'll ask you a question and you'll answer it, and then the next they'll kind of like look at you blankly while you're answering it, like a cat looks at a person when they don't know what they're saying. And then when you're done talking, they just talk as if you didn't say anything. Like this is the like liberal snobbery meets genocidal supremacy. That's what this woman represents.
From my understanding of my own, I was just in Germany recently, and it was such a good reminder that the Holocaust didn't start with the gassing of Jews. It started with the dehumanization of Jews. It was language that was used. And again...
Right. Okay, first of all, I'm going to play this again. I'm going to back this up again, because I feel like you need two cracks at this. Before we even address that point, which Tucker does a fairly good job of, how obnoxious are you that you would bring up that you just went to Germany to contemplate the lessons of the Holocaust in context of an interview where you are clearly demonstrating that you have not learned the lessons of the Holocaust, unless the lessons of the Holocaust are that Jews get to do whatever they want from now until the end of time because they were genocided once. If that's the lesson of the Holocaust, then I guess you have a point. And that is her point, because this is a supremacist mindset. How you could think it comes off good to bring up, hey, 2.5 years into a Holocaust in Gaza, I was in Germany, and it made me think that, people saying mean things about Jews is what led to a Holocaust. People saying dehumanizing things about Jews is what led to a Holocaust. Of course, Israelis have been saying dehumanizing things about the Palestinians since the inception of the Israeli state. And what has that led to? A Holocaust. A Holocaust. So now we'll get into this part of it.
And, it was such a good reminder that the Holocaust didn't start with the gassing of Jews. It started with the dehumanization of Jews. It was language that was used. And again, that is what
I couldn't agree
people.
more.
That's
And that's why when you have a U.S. senator, a member of Congress, a U.S. ambassador waving away civilian deaths as if they don't matter, that's the language of genocide, which results, and this is the lesson of the Holocaust, in genocide itself. And it has. So the lesson for me, really, watching all of this, is that this can happen in civilized countries, in all human beings. There is the capacity to ignore the evil right in front of you. And
Yes. So let's talk about dehumanizing language. Imposing a complete siege on Gaza. No electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. We are fighting human animals. That is Yoav Gallant, Israeli Minister of Defense. That statement was made on October 9th, 2023. Right at the kickoff of the genocide in Gaza, calling Palestinians human animals and justifying a complete siege on what they need to live. Human animals. This is nothing new. Here's an old article from Counterpunch in 2006. Israel's foes as beasts and insects. I'm going to try to get this name right. Punya Priya Dasgupta, the author of this piece, 20 years ago. I'm just going to read the highlighted text for the sake of time. Immediately after the 1967 war, Robin Maxwell Hyslop, a British conservative, recounted in the House of Commons a conversation he had with David Hay Cohen, one-time Israeli ambassador to Burma. As related by Maxwell Hyslop, Hay Cohen spoke with great intemperance and at great length about the Arabs. When he drew breath, I was constrained to say, Dr. Hay Cohen, I am profoundly shocked that you should speak of other human beings in terms similar to those in which Julius Streicher, notorious Nazi propagandist, spoke of the Jews. Well, will you look at that? Have you learned nothing? I shall remember his reply to my dying day. He smote the table with both hands and said, but they are not human beings. They are not people. They are Arabs. One of the many things Israeli spokesmen seem incapable of realizing is that abuse is no substitute for reason. Israel has amassed much military prowess, but remains very poor in logic. That was written once again in 2006. October 27th, 2023, Israel's former ambassador to UN calls Palestinians inhuman animals. Once again, talk about dehumanizing language, dehumanizing rhetoric. There have been academic papers written about this. This is one of the better known ones, stereotypes and prejudice and conflict representations of Arabs in Israeli Jewish society. This dates back generations to the inception of the Israeli state. Here's Netanyahu now referencing Amalek as it pertains to the Iranians and the Iran war. We'll hear the translation of this in just a second.
And if this regime of terror has nuclear weapons, they will threaten all of humanity. Therefore, we went out to push away this danger too, first of all from ourselves, from us. But we are acting here together with the United States in the name of and for the sake of all humanity. I draw immense strength from the resilience of our citizens, from the heroism of our soldiers and commanders. We read in this week's Torah portion, remember what Amalek did to you. We remember, and we act.
Okay, so I just showed you some examples. We could sit here all night showing examples of dehumanizing language, dehumanizing descriptions of not just the Palestinians, but all of Israel's adversaries. They're all Amalek, as he just showed you right here. So let's go back to Tucker's answer, and then let's see what the interviewer comes back at him with.
A U.S. ambassador waving away civilian deaths as if they don't matter. That's the language of genocide, which results, and this is the lesson of the Holocaust, in genocide itself. And it has. So the lesson for me, really, watching all of this, is that this can happen in civilized countries. In all human beings, there is the capacity to ignore the evil right in front of you. And my point is, it's happening right now. And my job, to the extent I have one, I don't really have a job, but I just want to remind people that we're all capable of that, including me, and that we're watching it right now. And if you think that Nick Fuentes is a greater threat to other human beings than Ted Cruz, I would love to know how.
I can imagine people hearing this and thinking you are soft-pedaling Nick Fuentes. You are.
Could you believe that response after all that? After all that, I think people are hearing this right now and saying you're soft-pedaling Nick Fuentes. No, I think people are watching this right now and seeing you not even soft-pedal a genocide, seeing you just totally unwilling to engage in the actual urgent and substantive conversation, which is by making this a referendum on Nick Fuentes, you are exonerating the people who are currently committing a Holocaust, which you are in denial about. And yet you make the emphasis of your critique of Nick Fuentes Holocaust denial. Anybody who tells you there is no genocide in Gaza is a Holocaust denier. They are Holocaust deniers. That's what you have to tell them. That has to be the rhetorical comeback, because that's exactly what they are. And here it gets this very nice sort of, comes with this nice sort of PMC, liberal New York Times sort of packaging, which, as Russ said, it's different traps for different mice, right? They have to funnel you into the same agenda of imperialism and militarism, and yes, in this case, ethnic cleansing, no matter where you fall on the political spectrum. So if you're on the right, they lean into this clash of civilizations narrative where Israel is this beacon of Western civilization and this bulwark against an invasion of anti-Western values because that appeals to the conservative brain. When it comes to liberals, they just have to deflect with accusations of Holocaust denial because they can't actually reckon with the substance of their point, because the substance of their point, the substance of the liberals' point here is a contradiction that is just proving more and more untenable to more and more people as this goes on, which is that a group can be both victim and perpetrator at the same time. In other words, the reason why they are reluctant, in fact, totally unwilling to engage on this point in the case of this woman here is because she just got back from Germany, right? And so if Jews are perpetual victims, then they can't be perpetrators at the same time, can they? Well, in fact, they are the perpetrators right now. The Jewish state, not the Jewish people necessarily en masse, but as we've seen, it's kind of a theme of the show this evening, Israel makes that distinction impossible. Israel blurs those lines on purpose, and this is exactly why. This is exactly why they blur those lines on purpose, because the Holocaust was not committed against Israelis. There were no Israelis back then. The Holocaust was committed against the Jewish people. So if you equate the state of Israel with the lives and aspirations of the Jewish people, well, then the Jewish people, as represented by the Jewish state, have a get out of jail card to do whatever the fuck they want in perpetuity. And that is what the Zionists seek, to make the overall dynamic when it comes to all of the media coverage and all of the conversation around Israel and around the Zionist project. And here you see these supremacist, genocidal ideas wrapped in intellectualized, liberalized packaging. The result is the exact same. That's why, as horrible as all of this is, look at how all of this started. Look at how all of this momentum built towards where we are now. Started for a year and change under the woke president, Joe Biden, right? Peak woke Joe Biden, peak woke Kamala Harris, right? Back when you had to hold your breath when you said, you know, biological man shouldn't compete against a biological woman in a swim team. You have to worry about whether they're going to turn your channel off if you say that, yet they are just as craven, just as genocidal, just as maniacal in practice as this administration now. In fact, that's a lot of how we got here. That's a lot of how we got here. And her response to all that, well, you're soft-pedaling Nick Fuentes.
There is the capacity to ignore the evil right in front of you. And my point is, it's happening right now. And my job, to the extent I have one, I don't really have a job, but I just want to remind people that we're all capable of that, including me, and that we're watching it right now. And if you think that Nick Fuentes is a greater threat to other human beings than Ted Cruz, I would love to know how.
I can imagine people hearing this and thinking you are soft-pedaling Nick Fuentes. You are apologizing for Nick Fuentes.
I'm hardly soft-pedaling Nick Fuentes. I'm trying to awaken people to killing of innocents in our midst, which we are not only encouraged to ignore, but really told to ignore on pain of being denounced. And I'm just saying, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. And she was obviously very taken aback by that answer. And that is just, you know, that really, for those of you who have had conversations with mainstream liberals about this, that's got to be pretty triggering. I know when I first saw that, I could not believe how after that entire monologue, she comes back. So you're soft-pedaling Nick Fuentes? That's like when Jimmy was on Jesse Lee Peterson. So you love God? And Jimmy goes on this whole thing. But, well, you know, I used to consider myself an atheist, and then I started thinking more about this and reading some more, and now, he's not an atheist anymore. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but goes on kind of a I won't say long-winded, but kind of an interesting sort of multi-layered answer. Jesse Lee Peterson takes a beat. So do you love God? Same thing. Same lack of curiosity about what he's saying. And that's what's just so maddening about the media class in general, is a deliberate lack of curiosity on these most urgent topics. So I thought that was worth pointing out. Kelly the Singer, thanks for the $10. Appreciate that very much. Thank you all very much for being here this evening. Brad Gilbert says, just change Germany and Jews with Israel and Palestine, and she makes sense. Those who do not learn from the past are doomed to become shit libs. Good wisdom there. Good wisdom there, my friend. Appreciate that very much. All right. While we're paused here, I do want to give you guys a little heads up about our partners at Chapter. Millions of seniors are on the wrong Medicare plan, and many of them don't know it. Here's how that happens. When you're trying to figure out Medicare, who do you call? Most people end up talking to a broker. And what they don't tell you is that brokers get paid by insurance companies to sell you specific plans, and so their income depends on what you enroll in. That's not an advisor, that's a salesperson with a conflict of interest. So you end up making a choice based on advice that was never designed to help you in the first place, and that's how millions of people end up on the wrong plan. Chapter is the exception. Chapter is the only national advisor that compares every plan in the country. Their advisors are salary-based, so there are no hidden incentives on their part. You tell them your doctors, you tell them your meds, and they do the hard work of finding a plan that fits. And if that plan is the one you're already enrolled in, then that's the end of the conversation. Either way, you get off the phone knowing you made the right call. It's worth a shot. It's free. It's no obligation. You have nothing to lose, and it takes only 20 minutes. You talk to a person right away. So if you're turning 65 or already on Medicare, call Chapter at 404-706-0804. That's 404-706-0804. All right, everybody. We are going to move right on along here. Once again, folks, we do have our Q&A after the show tonight. So that's dudissidents.com/rumble. We will be heading over there after this, our final segment of the evening. I see Kit Cabello in the chat. We got Gators in the chat. Kit will be back on Tuesday. It's been a while. What has it been? 12 days. Missing Kit Cabello. Jonesing for that Kit Cabello. We got Kit Cabello on Tuesday at 1 p.m. And then we have Butch Ware is actually coming on the show on Thursday at noon Eastern. So great lineup of guests this week. And then we have a guest host on Sunday, which I will announce midweek. I will keep you in suspense about that, but great guest host coming up next Sunday. And then Russ will be back right after that. So we are coming down to the end of Russ's trip. He's got a lot of great stuff to show you guys from China. He's been putting some of it on his channel, but he's going to be putting together a great sort of full segment on China for, I think, the Sunday show when he gets back. So for those asking, where's Russ? He will be back in about, what are we looking at? 9 days, 10 days, whatever that math works out to be. I've started putting at the, because you've been getting a lot of YouTube comments. Where's Russ? When's he coming back? So I put a little text comment at the beginning of most of the YouTube clips now announcing it. Doesn't matter. People still ask, where is he? I think some people listen. Some people listen rather than watch. So maybe I should put a little video disclaimer at the beginning. I'll do that at the beginning of this clip. Our final segment of the evening. Let me just cue this up. Make sure I have this myself here. All righty. Awesome. Okay, folks. Welcome to the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton here. Russ will be back later this month from his trip to China. Okay, so we just did a segment talking about the current Holocaust in Gaza, and we haven't done a Gaza story in a while because there hasn't been much reporting out of Gaza in a while. That is has a lot to do with the fact that over 200 journalists in Gaza have been killed. There's also a war with Iran. Israel is now on a campaign of destruction in Lebanon. Parts of Lebanon look like parts of Gaza now, shockingly and sadly, but of course, not all that surprisingly. So in Gaza, a desperate rush for water trucks persists more than 6 months after the ceasefire. When water trucks motor into their neighborhood, the Abu Dhaka family scrambles to hose what they can into dented plastic jerry cans marked with their name. Yehia Abu Dhaka rations it, 1 can per each of their children, pouring a little into a sippy cup for one of her daughters outside their tent in Mawasi, the sprawling tent camp where hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians now live. The water truck arrives and some 500 to 1,000 people throw themselves at it, Abu Dhaka said. They start fighting. It's real suffering. Palestinians say water shortages have persisted more than 6 months after a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas stopped most of the fighting in Gaza. Nearly 90% of the enclave's water infrastructure was destroyed, according to the United Nations, including desalination plants and sewage treatment facilities. So here is some just absolutely devastating footage of a barefoot child running after an empty water truck through the Gaza rubble here. Just unbearable. Just absolutely fucking gut-wrenching to watch. WASH Cluster, United Nations-led network of non-governmental organizations focused on water and sanitation, estimates that 80% of people in Gaza rely on water delivered by trucks to central distribution points. For Azmi Abu Leia, that means on some days he makes the walk to his neighborhood's distribution point more than 500 meters away. Sometimes he gets water to lug back home through Mawasi, and other days he doesn't. On 2 days, the water trucks come, and on the other 2 days, they don't, he said. Israel has said it no longer limits the import of water. COGAT, the military body that oversees humanitarian issues in Gaza, said it helped ensure pipelines can bring in enough for sanitation, sewage, drinking, and washing, and has not limited bottled water either. But Palestinians say the bottled water, much of which is delivered by private sector groups and sold in markets, is prohibitively expensive, with most of Gaza destroyed and its population unable to access jobs or steady incomes. Jobs or steady incomes. Talk about just the rapaciousness of capitalism and the emptiness of the Western ethos, all just coming to a head in ways that you wouldn't even consider. Bottled water is prohibitively expensive, and so people are unable to afford bottled water. You would assume at this point, with a ceasefire in effect, that you at least have a steady aid of water coming in. But no. Israel has sabotaged a lot of the water infrastructure. They have fired upon a lot of water aid trucks throughout the past couple of years. Doctors Without Borders did a huge report on this, which we're going to get into a little bit. Sharif Abu Halal, another Mawasi resident, doesn't even ask when he sees water bottles at his market because he knows he can't afford it. Afford what? What is there to afford? What money do people have? How could people get work? How does society function at all? You know, it's amazing when you read stories like this and you see the aftermath of all this. It's kind of extraordinary that Gaza is functioning as much as it is. You know, And you kind of have mixed feelings about saying that because you don't want to give people a false sense of optimism. You also, don't want to downplay in any way what these people have been through, which is just absolute unfathomable hell on earth. But it is a testament to their resilience that you're even talking about income and jobs and affording things. How does this society function at all as is? I mean, this just seems like wilderness at this point. That is how much their civilization has just been decimated. And yet semblances of, dare I say, normalcy, and it's nothing like actual normalcy. So again, you kind of hesitate to use any of these terms. But semblances of functionality, I should say, not normalcy, functionality, seem to show up in these articles. Like, I don't know what there is to afford or not afford. Imagine having money in Gaza and what that's worth. It's extraordinary. It really is. It's extraordinary to fathom. I am not ready to buy each person a bottle of water, he said. I have 8 people. Is a gallon of water enough for them? In a report on water and sanitation this week, Doctors Without Borders, or MSF, a non-governmental group, accused Israel of using water as a weapon of war, systemically depriving people in what it calls a campaign of collective punishment. Other groups, including Human Rights Watch, have lodged similar accusations. So this is a pretty lengthy report that Doctors Without Borders has put out, Water as a Weapon, Israel's Destruction and Deprivation of Water and Sanitation in Gaza. We'll read some of the executive summary. It's a pretty lengthy report. It's free to download. You can download and read it. I've read much of it over the course of the last couple of days. Palestinians in Gaza face engineered water scarcity. Even with MSF as the largest non-governmental water producer in Gaza, distributing or producing over 4.7 million liters of water daily as of January 2026, needs far exceed supply. Between May and November 2025, 1 in every 5 of MSF's water distributions ran dry while people were still waiting. Families often prioritize drinking over cooking or washing, limit personal hygiene, and rely on unsafe or saline sources when humanitarian deliveries are interrupted, meaning going into the sea. Between October 2023 and January 2026, prices for water produced by private providers have increased by up to 500%, placing it beyond the reach of most households that have lost their livelihoods. People in Gaza also endure entirely preventable and dire sanitation and hygiene conditions. Sanitation systems have effectively collapsed in displacement camps. Families dig makeshift latrines in their tents or have to share one with many others. They fill up quickly and are often too close to boreholes, contaminating groundwater. Heavy rains flood these rudimentary facilities, spreading waste and fecal bacteria. Solid waste accumulates in living areas due to halted collection systems and fuel shortages. Hygiene items such as soap, disinfectant, diapers, and menstrual products have been unavailable or scarce and remain prohibitively expensive. So here's a video that TRT World did about this Doctors Without Borders report. And like I was saying earlier, just to get a glimpse of what life is now. What are we, 7-8 months into this quote-unquote ceasefire? Is just kind of amazing in and of itself. But they have some more details about the weaponization of water as reported by Doctors Without Borders.
Inhumane Israeli practices continue to take their toll on the Gaza Strip's drinking water. On Tuesday, Doctors Without Borders decried Israel for systematically depriving people in Gaza of the water they need to live. The medical charity, which goes by its French acronym MSF, said in its report entitled Water as a Weapon that the engineered scarcity was occurring alongside direct killing of civilians, the devastation of health facilities, and the destruction of homes.
The water here is not good for children, drinking, to prepare tea, or even to wash clothes. Sometimes when we get good water, we store it to give to children, because they keep getting sick. We are living through warlike conditions, and most of us are displaced and concentrated in one area. Most of the water is unfit for human consumption. Just look around you.
While describing Israel's inhumane practices as collective punishment, the MSF report used data from the United Nations, European Union, and World Bank, indicating that Israel had destroyed or damaged nearly 90% of water and sanitation infrastructure in Gaza.
We suffer tremendously trying to access clean water. Every few days, water trucks come to our area, and the water is not always of good quality. Our children are suffering from gastrointestinal diseases and skin diseases because of the water. Our living conditions are horrible because of the tents and the bombarded buildings.
Israel also maintains tight restrictions on the entry of badly needed equipment to maintain water systems. Along with violating international law, this practice is also worsening humanitarian conditions in the devastated enclave. Under Article 7 of the Rome Statute, intentionally depriving the civilian population of conditions of life calculated to bring about their destruction is an act of extermination and classified as a crime against humanity.
These Israeli practices come in within the framework of genocide, whether by using hunger as a weapon or by weaponizing thirst, including the targeting of water infrastructure or Israel's preventing water from reaching the people.
Israel's targeting of Gaza's vital infrastructure during and after the war continues to exacerbate this already existing crisis. Ashraf Shannon, TRT World, Gaza.
So,
Borders decried Israel.
Just a devastating report from Doctors Without Borders, which of course just does incredible work there. Just to see this video, it's just really gutting and really troubling. And when you think of what the Palestinians have endured these past 2.5 years, and then you see a report like this and you see stories come out about water shortages, and you really look into the report, I'll talk a little bit, summarizing a little bit of it right now. But one of the things that it brings to mind is that what you see on your Twitter scroll is the very immediate and very disturbing sort of visceral horror of violence. But when you contemplate the long-term effects of what has happened over these couple of years, it is really, really difficult to imagine how any sense of functionality is ever going to be restored here when you just look at what you're up against. So a lack of clean water affects everything. All kinds of problems arise from a devastated water infrastructure. People use a hole in the ground in their tent as a bathroom. And not to get, too graphic, but you can imagine the health issues that creates, especially for babies and for young children who are particularly prone to bacterial infections and whose, bodies aren't used to having to fight things like that. Unclean water leads to diarrheal diseases, which then create even more dire dehydration. This can be deadly for pregnant women or for new mothers breastfeeding their babies. The water that is distributed through aid is often done in very heavy containers where elderly people and young kids aren't able to get their hands on them. And now if the male in the household has been killed, then they send the kids out to do the best they can. The kids have all kinds of problems getting this water. Some of them literally aren't able to lift the containers of water. Some of them are scared away by older people who need the water more. So it creates this horrible Darwinian competition for water. If the male in the household has not been killed, the young man is often tasked with other responsibilities like finding income somehow, or food, or firewood. They have to add to that going and fighting for water. As we read a little bit about here, hygiene, difficult to impossible. People use what little clean water they can access for more urgent needs, and often their hygiene suffers, which brings on more health problems. And all of these things create compounding effects and long-term effects, which is why the Genocide Convention specifically lists as items 3 and 4, when defining acts of genocide, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction. Conditions, inflicting conditions on the group, conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, in whole or in part. In other words, it's not just the violence. It's when you create these conditions, you are going to inevitably have widespread, long-term effects on the population that is, yes, going to lead to destruction and annihilation of that group. Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. That's another article of the Genocide Convention. That is another item on the list of offenses that constitutes genocide. Obviously, pregnant women, the first thing you learn as a pregnant woman is stay hydrated. The most important thing for your body. That is made a challenge, to put it mildly, under these circumstances. And so sabotaging water infrastructure, turning off water supplies, limiting aid shipments, these are all ways in which the genocide was perpetrated, aside from just the obvious carpet bombing of the Gaza Strip, which we all saw on our phones. But I think a lot of times these death tolls add up in silence. They add up in the background. It's stuff like this that really creates mass death events on top of the immediacy of the brutality of war. And so for decades, we're going to see effects of this that we're not even contemplating now, because of the immediacy of all that visceral horror that we've witnessed, which is why when you see these blueprints drawn up, by Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, and, for tourist areas and sports and recreation facilities in post-war Gaza, it's just so sickening, because this is going to take decades, which is a conservative estimate, generations really, to restore any semblance of functional, much less normal life in Gaza. And unless serious investments are made in reparations for what's been done, it is not going to happen at all. It's just not going to happen unless serious proactive investments are made in writing this. And it's impossible to write this, but we're not even there. You can't even get a fucking flotilla within 500 miles of Gaza without these thugs coming out and kidnapping you and sending you to Crete, and then taking the two in from Spain and Brazil and fucking torturing them. My suspicion, not to repeat myself, this will be clipped separately, is that the reason those two were singled out for extended detention is because they were from countries that have been more hostile to Israel since the beginning of this genocide. And so, unless there are serious investments made to rehabilitate the people and the civilization in Gaza, then there is not going to be any future that resembles any semblance of normal life. And if there is any hope in any of this, it's that younger generations of people all around the world seem to understand that this is going to take a proactive investment. And they seem committed to seeing that through. But in the interim, it's very bleak, because even after 3 years of this, we have speech bans in the UK. We have our State Department condemning a humanitarian aid flotilla. We have major media outlets obsessed with insisting that to even mention of any of this is somehow a blood libel against Jewish people. The world has truly gone mad, and humanity really did die in Palestine, at least for whatever constitutes our ruling establishment. And, you know, a lot of this is generational. Not all of it's, relax, boomers, not here to pick a fight with you. But for whatever reason, the world has become completely paralyzed in the face of this pure and absolute evil that has just consumed every institution capable of restraining it. And no matter how obvious it gets, the ruling class just doubles down on barbarism. Because that's what this is, plain and simple. This is just absolute barbarism. How you can see a video like this and not just have something inside you break means you're already a broken person, and humanity has really been broken over this. It really has. It's something that I think a lot of people have been feeling. You know, we've gotten a lot of comments in a lot of the videos in, you know, recent times, just about the sadness of the times, and how people are just sort of forced to sort of sit and contemplate how we got to this point. How the fuck did this happen? And that's a question that we're all going to be wrestling with, I think, for quite some time. And that's a pretty bleak assessment of things, but that's the most honest one I can give you. And I think it is going to be a long-term project for really the entire world to process this and commit to an actual ethos of never again. Because when you see just the day-to-day horror of this, how 7-8 months after a ceasefire, it's still this hard to get water. I mean, it's going to take a global reckoning in order to really breathe some life back into the human race after this. I feel like, because it is just shocking and horrific what these people have had to endure with relative silence, you know, from the rest of the world. And the evidence doesn't seem to matter, doesn't seem to move people enough. Doesn't move governments at all. Not at all. You have fucking Keir Starmer. Yeah, we're going to ban these protests as like it's November of 2023. Just amazing. Pretty amazing. Pretty bleak stuff. Sorry to have to end things on that note, but we do have some chats and some rants to get to, and we will be taking some of your calls. So let's get to the last of these here. Roachy Boy, the Kit doing a Valley Girl impression segment is going to be great. Free Palestine. Did he agree to that? Did we have a commitment from Kit? That would be fun. Bring you to Greena. Thanks for the $4.99. One of the best parts of Electronic Intifada's weekly live stream is the feature of people in Gaza expressing joy. Highly recommended. Yeah, that is a great idea. That is a great idea. First Green Fire Dancer. Excuse me. The Waterkeeper Alliance charity charter says that the basic human right is to have water safe enough to drink, fish, and 3 swim in. RFK Jr. was a spokesperson for them. Notice he's quiet on this. Yeah. safe enough to fuck a fish in. Thank you, Furls Queen. Appreciate that. Deno 2100. That realization that capitalism is so pervasive that even John Connor probably had to work a gig job when he wasn't fighting the T-1000s. I don't even fantasize about the apocalypse anymore. Thank you, Deno 2100. Appreciate that. Yeah, well, that, you add to this all of the tech stuff. I mean, it really is. People are very affected by this, these are very, very difficult and uncertain times, and to take stock of how we got here is just kind of crazy. It just kind of happens without you realizing it too much. I think that's kind of how it goes. But anyway, folks, that is our show. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Thanks to Jake in the booth. Thanks to the YouTubers and the Rumblers. Thanks to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat. We are going to head over to Rumble right now for our post-show after-party Q&A. DoDissidents.com/Rumble. We will take a 5-minute intermission, and then we will go to the phone lines. If you're sticking around, we will see you in 5 minutes. If you are not sticking around for the Q&A, we will see you back here Tuesday, 1 p.m. with our resident Tuesday dissident, Mr. Kit Cabello. Be fun to have Kit back on the show again. Always fun to mix it up with Hardlands Media. Thanks very much to our guest of the evening, Lee Camp, for making some time for us tonight. And we will see you back here Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern. If you're sticking around for the Q&A, DoDissidents.com/Rumble. If you're sticking around for that, we'll see you in 5 minutes. Otherwise, we'll see you Tuesday. Until whenever we see you again, thanks very much for making time for us this evening. Be safe and be well.
Please clap.